one of them a ghost?
There's a spooky ship, sudden disappearance of Cynthia Anderson. The Pink Panther network of jewel thieves. Where 200 years ago, that turned into an actual murder case. Should we find out what happened?
I mean, we better, yeah.
Let's get into it. This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we look into the legendary life and suspicious death of history's most famous magician, Harry Houdini.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say David Blaine.
You think David Blaine's more famous than Harry Houdini?
You saw the balloons, right?
I was a little bit of a freaky kid.
Well, I mean, that's a given.
I was a frequenter of the Houdini magic shop.
You were a big Houdini kid.
I was a big Houdini kid. I wish I could have seen this guy perform magic. Obviously, I can't because he's dead. That's why we're talking about him.
But he did, you know?
Should we find out what happened?
I mean, we better, yeah.
Let's get into it.
Harry Houdini was born Erich Weiss in Hungary in 1874. When he was 4, he emigrated to the US with his mother Cecilia and 4 brothers to meet with his father, Herman, who had already moved to the States a few years before. They settled in the town of Appleton, Wisconsin, where his father was a rabbi at a small Reform congregation. The family's relative poverty imprinted a drive to be successful on the boy who would be Houdini. By the age of 9, in part to help support his family, Eric began working as a trapeze performer in circuses. In 1882, his family moved to New York City, where Eric began performing in vaudeville shows, then considered to be the top of the entertainment pyramid. Though, at first, Eric didn't make much impact.
I know it worked out in the long run, but if I'm Herman,
Yeah.
you know, toiling to provide for my wife, Cecilia, is that her name?
Yeah.
Your boy comes to you and says, I'm gonna step up, help out the family, I'm gonna pitch in, I'm gonna get a job. I'd be like, you're the best son, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna be a trapeze artist. I'd be like, get out of my house.
In 1891, a 17-year-old Eric and friend Jacob Hyman created an act that included a basic set of card and magic tricks called the Brothers Houdini. In 1892, after the death of Eric's father, the Brothers Houdini took their show on the road, performing at dime museums and small theaters. In 1894, Eric married 18-year-old Wilhelmina Beatrice Rayner, or Bess, who became his stage assistant. The pair toured as the Houdinis, but life as traveling performers was hard. In 1898, the 25-year-old Houdini considered quitting the business altogether, burnt out from years on the road.
You're getting on trains left and right, chugga choo choo, hard to fall asleep on those things, can't even get a good night's sleep. Wake up, you're in Cleveland. Huh? Wake up, you're in Boise. Time to do magic, time to do magic, time to do magic. Can you imagine?
I can't imagine. Imagine if you woke up in Florida. Time to get back on the train.
Please! Mosquitoes the size of bats. Get me out of here. That's the part of the biopic where it's just montage. He's waking up. He's like, what city am I in? They're like, do magic, you son of a bitch.
In 1899, while performing in a beer garden in St. Paul, Minnesota, Houdini caught the attention of one Martin Beck, a man of influence in the world of vaudeville. After watching Houdini escape from a pair of handcuffs, Beck gave Houdini a pair of his own handcuffs to try to escape from. Houdini did so with ease.
Gotta say, a little weird that this man is carrying handcuffs.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if you're a magician on stage and you're like, voila, I've escaped. And then some guy in the audience is like, try it with mine instead.
Little pink fuzzy ones.
Oh,
Where'd
wait,
you get
those aren't yours. Try it with these instead.
Sorry, wrong pocket.
Impressed, Beck put the Houdinis on the influential Orpheum vaudeville circuit, which meant the husband and wife would perform fewer shows, but for more money. Houdini's profile began to rise as an escape artist, and he gained admiration for his skill at manipulating locks and pure brute strength.
Don't know if you know this, but this guy was stacked.
Like Tom Hardy?
Jacked. Dude was big. He's a moose.
Like...
Have you seen a picture of this guy with his shirt off? There's pictures where he's like leaned out, you know, like Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
Yeah.
Like that kind of look. But there's other ones where he's like straight up Bane.
Like Human Cloud.
Yeah. Guy's a goddamn transformer.
All right. Truckosaurus.
You'd think of magicians, you'd think of like sweaty nerds usually, like performing card magic.
Nowadays, yeah. They didn't have muscle tech back then, did they?
Not that I know of. I think he was just like eating raw meat, just going into the forest and biting rabbits' heads off.
Yeah. Pulling it out of the hat.
Houdini also attracted thousands for the pure drama and showmanship of his performances. A typical act would see Houdini bound with chains and tossed in a box that was locked, roped, and weighted, which would then be tossed into water. Houdini, of course, escaped every time. In 1908, Houdini premiered his infamous milk can trick. First, a milk can filled with water was inspected by audience members. A handcuffed Houdini was then squeezed into the milk can, which was sealed with 6 padlocks. A curtain was drawn, and the audience held their breath along with the submerged magician. Within 2 minutes, Houdini would somehow break free and emerge from behind the milk can, with it still padlocked. In his lifetime, no one ever knew how he did it.
How big is a milk can? Like,
No, he wasn't squeezed into a milk bottle. This is like a bigger, like a barrel.
Okay.
Barrel's probably more accurate.
I was about to be very impressed.
That would be crazy.
Yeah. I would love nothing more to travel back in time and see him do some of this bullshit. You know he'd kill on YouTube these days.
He probably would, but then it doesn't have the same kind of awe because it's not in front of a live audience. It's easier to fabricate.
Yeah.
Look, it's a trick, obviously, but the fact that no one knows how he did it, pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the
This
point.
is a trick that's over 100 years old. You would think by now someone would be like, yeah, he obviously did this.
I bet magicians know. They probably just don't tell anybody.
Not from my research.
You wouldn't be able to. You're not part of the league.
The League? I've been to the Magic Castle 3 times.
They let anybody in there.
That's not what they told me. They told me that I'm the only person they've let in the Magic Castle in the last 20 years.
Yeah, yeah. How much did you pay to get in there?
They
quite
paid
a bit.
me. They paid me.
That's not true.
It's true.
Ryan, is that true?
No.
Houdini had a penchant for not just creating his own amazing illusions, but performing other magicians' tricks as well. Only better. For instance, British magician Charles Morritt pioneered a trick where he made a live donkey disappear on stage. Houdini paid Morritt for the rights to perform the trick and then figured out how to do it, but with an elephant. According to John Cox, author of the Houdini website, Wild About Harry, quote, "We still don't know how he did the elephant trick. He would Houdinize these more common feats of magic. His mind was always innovating, always inventing," end quote.
That would be like me saying like, hey, nice turtleneck, Shane, asking you where you got it, and then the next day I walk into the office and my turtleneck is much bigger than yours. It's like all the way up
I
here.
would feel pretty devastated if you complimented and then the next day I just saw your judging eyes, just like,
Oh, you like this turtleneck?
oh, this old thing?
Part of the reason why, more than 100 years later, we still don't know the exact tricks behind Houdini's performances is because he guarded his secrets so well. Though he was wary of imitators, Houdini didn't patent his tricks, since in the patent process, he would have to give a detailed explanation for how they worked. Those explanations would be publicly available and therefore destroy the magic. To get around this, for his Chinese water torture cell trick, Houdini staged the trick on stage in England as a one-act play, with only a single person in the audience. This allowed him to copyright the act instead of patenting it, meaning no one else could perform the trick, and how he pulled it off could remain a secret.
How do they do that nowadays? Is it the same thing?
What, in terms of keeping tricks a secret?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's some like inside baseball stuff for magicians. Only things that
Magicians, let us know in the comments.
Oh, I know because I'm in that, you know.
No, you're not. You're not a magician. I've never seen you do magic. Wait.
Isn't that the best trick of all?
No, actually, that's not impressive. I guess if you're good enough, you don't even have to worry about copyright, because who's going to figure it out?
That's
Nobody.
what I was just going
Nobody.
to say, yeah. If they figure it out, good for them.
While Houdini cultivated an air of mystery around his death-defying feats, he never claimed his abilities to be supernatural. In fact, Houdini grew to detest claims of otherworldly powers, becoming one of leading critics of the spiritualist movement that was gaining momentum in Europe and the United States in the wake of World War I. In the 1890s, Houdini and his wife Bess dabbled in practicing spiritualism, attempting to summon the dead in public after researching names at local graveyards. It didn't take Houdini long to realize the entire practice was nonsense.
Do you agree with that?
No.
Oh, thought I got you.
Look,
So talking to the dead.
we're going to get into this more later in terms of what I believe.
I'm very curious to find out your stance on life after death.
I guess you'll just have to stay tuned.
According to famous magician Teller, quote, "When you are a professional magician, you want to see your art respected for what it is, not misused to mislead people about the universe," end quote. Houdini would ultimately go on to attend seances undercover, exposing the mediums as simply skilled performers. He would also recreate their tricks at his own shows, asserting there was nothing supernatural about it. In all, Houdini spent years attempting to expose mind readers and mediums as con artists, duping an otherwise ignorant audience who might be suffering genuine grief. And while mediums and seances were no strangers to public doubt, Houdini's vendetta was personal. In 1913, while Houdini was in Sweden to perform for the royal family, Cecilia Weiss, Houdini's mother, passed away. Houdini, a self-proclaimed mother's boy, was reportedly so stricken by the news that he fainted and wept uncontrollably. In the aftermath, though he had already concluded personally that spiritualism was a con, he nevertheless searched in vain for a real medium to try to contact his deceased mother.
Of course he'd be sad, it's his mother.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
This is important to point out, though, because it's not so much that he overall believes spiritualism is just not real. It's more that he believes a majority of the people who are practicing spiritualism, like mediums and psychics, all that, are con men.
Flim-flam men. I continue to respect him.
And here is where my belief aligns with his. I believe in ghosts, but I don't believe every place is haunted that claims it's haunted. Nor do I believe every medium is telling the truth. But I do believe in ghosts. So me and Houdini are a bit simpatico.
Yeah, Houdini believes 1% of things, and you believe 95% of things, right?
Yes, like 3%, yeah.
I'm just saying, we've been to a lot of places. And you seem to buy into a lot.
Look, I'm trying to conduct a very thorough investigation, and if I find anomalies, I'm going to report them. But that's not to say that every place we've been to has been haunted. And to prove it, I will name one place that is not haunted for sure that we've gone to, and that is, drum roll please,
In 1922, Houdini was invited to a seance being held by Lady Doyle, the wife of his friend Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes. Sir Doyle believed through spiritualism he could communicate directly with his son Kingsley, who had tragically died in the 1918 influenza epidemic. Further, Sir Doyle believed Houdini himself possessed supernatural abilities, something Houdini adamantly denied. Nevertheless, it appears Sir Doyle's admiration for Houdini's otherworldly gifts was at least partially the reason why the two celebrities' friendship began.
Yeah, so Doyle believed that Houdini was like a demon or something that had supernatural powers, and Houdini was like, dude, I just do magic.
But he refused to accept that?
And the guy was just like, nah.
No, you're magic.
You're holding out on me, bro. Well, I mean, I know the feeling as somebody who has a friend who's only with him because of his gift. I have the vision.
You do have the vision.
And I have adamantly denied it over and over in many episodes on this show.
And yet I insist that you, Ryan Bergara, have the vision ever since you fell into that pile of bricks.
It's a weird symbiotic relationship that I could kind of relate to. So I don't have the vision.
His brain is cracked.
I could hear you. Just because you're...
Sorry, your brain is cracked.
At the seance conducted by Lady Doyle held at the Ambassador Hotel in Atlantic City, the hostess rapped on the table 3 times and claimed to be in contact with Houdini's mother. Lady Doyle wrote out 15 pages of messages for Houdini, who thanked the Doyles and left quietly. While many may have scoured the pages for some comfort from a loved one beyond the grave, Houdini seethed. The pages were all in English, a language his mother never spoke.
Let's say you're a Houdini. Oh God. I regret saying that because now you're going to take 10 minutes to get in character as Houdini. And apparently all that takes is you slicking your hair back. What in the name?
Yes.
This is Shane Day and his morning dump every morning. Yeah.
Empty this vessel.
Anyways, you're Houdini. This person's saying they're communicating with a dead relative. 10 seconds into the seance, you realize this is a blownster because they're saying they're speaking in a language that relative never spoke. It's very funny to me that Houdini sat there and let this person scrawl out 15 pages worth and didn't go like, she didn't speak English. The pettiness of this guy, I'm gonna make this person like really sell it for like an hour.
Do you think he was seething, or was he sort of like...
He was seething.
Okay, yeah, because I'd be pissed.
So would you not say anything?
I would be livid, and I would want them to feel shame.
The seance with the Doyles seems to have been the final straw for Houdini, who now set out to expose spiritualists as frauds with renewed determination. Houdini had already written a book, Miracle Mongers and Their Methods, a complete expose of the modus operandi of fire eaters, heat resistors, poison eaters, venomous reptile defiers, sword swallowers, human ostriches, strongmen, etc., which exposed the tricks and trades of various sideshow level acts claiming miraculous feats.
He started off at the bottom of the barrel, doing a bunch of sideshow acts, essentially. Now here he is writing a book exposing all these sideshow acts. Like, what did the sword swallowers do to him? What did the human ostriches do to him? By the way,
what does that mean?
Human
What the
ostrich
fuck?
is a human who just eats anything, like glass or like a fucking soda can.
Now, my man David Blaine did that.
I'm just saying, it's weird for me to just have him go, I hate spiritualists. I'm gonna come after every sideshow performer there ever was and make sure no one could perform except me.
Well, but at the same time, someone could take him down too. If they figured out his tricks, they could go after him, and nobody's doing it. So I guess he's the best. And if he wants to take everybody else down, then good for him.
Houdini followed that book up with A Magician Among the Spirits, a scathing expose on the spiritualist trickery. He also went forward with a 40-page illustrated pamphlet dedicated to taking down one popular medium in particular, Boston's Mina Crandon, also known as Marjorie. The pamphlet was appropriately titled, quote, Houdini exposes the tricks used by the Boston medium Marjorie, end quote.
For as gifted as he was as a magician, not much of a wordsmith, this man.
Would have worked as a YouTube title.
That's true. A
I'm
little
clicking.
long. Could have.
I'm clicking. He gets his
word
name up front. You know, he's not just like, the fraud, Marjorie. He's like, yo, I'm in this one. Check it out.
Do you think Houdini would have been an expose vlogger in today's world?
Oh, big time.
With just thumbs of him going like looking surprised with question marks on it. Is Marjorie real? You'll never believe what I found when I Googled Shane Day.
Houdini also began lecturing around the country about, quote, fraudulent spiritualistic phenomena, end quote, going so far as to testify before Congress in 1926, lobbying for a bill to regulate mediums and fortune tellers, potentially threatening to charge those, quote, pretending to tell fortunes for reward or compensation, end quote, with a crime. Unfortunately for Houdini, his campaign would be a short-lived one. On October 11th, 1926, Houdini broke his left ankle during a performance in Albany, New York. Being a goddamned professional, Houdini finished the performance and went against doctors' orders by traveling to his next set of performances in Montreal. While in Montreal, Houdini took time out of his schedule for one of his favorite pastimes, giving a lecture at McGill University about what fraudulent hucksters spiritualists were. After a matinee performance several days later, some medical students from McGill visited Houdini in his dressing room. One of the students, Jocelyn Gordon Whitehead, presumably because Houdini's reputation as a jacked dude with incredible strength preceded him, asked if he could punch the magician in the stomach. Houdini said yes, but before he could tighten his gut, the student dealt a few fast and hard blows.
I just can't imagine going up to someone and be like, hey, can I punch you? And the person's like, yeah, give you poof, 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 poof.
Yeah. You're just like, Jesus Christ.
Oh shit, are you dead? Big fan.
Like, it sounds like Houdini couldn't even get out a syllable of yes before the guy was throwing a couple haymakers. Yeah. Like, he was just revved up. The whole show was like, sick trick. I'm gonna punch the shit out of that guy when I get the chance. And Houdini was like,
first, I'm gonna ask.
Houdini began to complain of stomach cramps that evening. During a 15-hour train ride to his next show in Detroit, Houdini was in a great deal of pain, both from his stomach and his shattered ankle, arriving in the Motor City with a 104-degree fever. A doctor was brought to the theater and diagnosed Houdini with acute appendicitis and told the magician he needed to get to the hospital immediately. Houdini refused, apparently declaring, quote, "I'll do this show if it's my last," end quote.
Oof.
Prophetic.
Yeah, I'd be like,
it was his last.
I'm not gonna do this show. I would go to the hospital.
Houdini somehow made it through the show, and eventually, his wife convinced him to finally go to a hospital. On October 24th, Houdini had an emergency operation to remove his already burst appendix. He underwent a second operation on October 28th, but on October 31st, 1926, Harry Houdini succumbed to a severe case of sepsis.
This is interesting because I always thought it was like, bam, and then he's just like, ow,
Yeah.
dead, R.I.P. I didn't realize it was so protracted.
Yeah, he did another show.
Newspapers almost immediately began to speculate about foul play. With his final curtain drawn at the height of his popularity, it's time to jump into theories surrounding what brought down history's most famous magician. Our first theory, and the most widely accepted, is that Whitehead's meathead desire to hit another person accidentally caused the appendicitis that led to Houdini's demise. However, according to a 2013 study in the World Journal of Emergency Surgery, appendicitis as the result of blunt force trauma is extremely rare, to the extent that there is still debate whether it could ever happen. Of course, there's still the possibility that Houdini was developing appendicitis independently of the punches. Either way, this theory postulates that Houdini was simply the victim of random bad luck, and that refusing medical treatment certainly did not help matters.
If your appendix is not doing great, and maybe doctors out there can holler at us and let us know, if it got punched, would it make it worse?
I'm sure it wouldn't help.
No.
But like I just said, they're not even sure that it could be caused by blunt force trauma. It's possible that it was just going to happen regardless. In fact, this might have actually been, in a weird way, if you want to spin this, it could have been like a lucky turn of events if he went to the hospital.
Yeah, but in the same way, maybe it's unlucky because of the punch. He was like, well, I got punched, I'll be fine. Whereas if it would have happened without the punch.
I see. He doesn't strike me as the kind of cat that would be like, stomach's hurting out of nowhere, gotta go get this checked out.
Yeah.
He's probably more like, I've escaped from a milk can, I could do anything.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, hubris.
Go to the hospital if you're hurting.
Yeah.
Moral of the story.
Our second theory is that Whitehead was an assassin sent to try to murder Houdini by punching him to death. Houdini had no shortage of enemies, whether it was the other magicians he was constantly belittling, the individual mediums he was writing pamphlets discrediting, or the entire field of spiritualism that he was lobbying to make illegal. Perhaps someone got fed up with Houdini and wanted to prevent him from doing any more damage. Admittedly, this theory's a little weak. As we already said, trauma-caused appendicitis, if it even exists at all, is very rare. So it would be a pretty ineffective assassin who chooses that as their preferred means of murder.
I will say, it's a very narrow window if this person was the perfect assassin to know that there's a 0.001% chance that you could cause appendicitis from blunt force trauma, despite some people not even thinking that's possible.
Right.
But Whitehead was a med student.
Yes, but them saying that there's a very, very rare chance does not mean it's not like Smaug's scale that you have to shoot a little arrow into. It's just saying like the likeliness of that happening is almost impossible.
Like,
not that there's a very specific technique.
Yeah, like
to it.
they don't have posters at med school where they're like, all right, here's the kill zone right here.
Yeah.
If you punch right here, this guy's appendix is gonna go boom.
Our final theory is that someone from the spiritualist underworld poisoned Houdini while he was in the hospital. We've already mentioned the spiritualist community's potential motivation for assassination. And according to a Houdini biography, The Secret Life of Houdini, poisoning was their preferred method of murder. Despite receiving death threats, Houdini and Bess traveled without security. Apart from explaining why random med school students could punch him on a whim, this means there would have been plenty of opportunity for a spiritualist with a syringe to get to a Houdini while he recovered from surgery. Houdini was buried without an autopsy, meaning there is no evidence to disprove or prove this theory.
The poison's weird because he was clearly in distress well before he went to the hospital. So at that point, yeah, I guess you could finish the job, but it seems like he was in pretty dire straits. So
Yeah, I mean, sepsis is not a joke.
nothing funny about sepsis. I'm not laughing.
Seems like you're throwing down the gauntlet.
Sepsis. No laughs here.
What do you want from me, man?
Nothing. Just saying, we're not laughing at it.
I'm not. I'm laughing at you.
Are
not
you laughing at
I'm
sepsis?
laughing at you not laughing at sepsis, which is not something to laugh about.
He's laughing at sepsis.
I'm laughing at you not laughing.
Houdini's sudden death shocked the world. The New York Times wrote of the collective disbelief that Houdini, quote, who so often had seemed to thousands to be cheating the very jaws of death, end quote, could die from the likes of appendicitis. If some angry spiritualists were behind Houdini's death, their plan ultimately backfired. Even in death, Houdini worked to discredit their field, as he and his wife had agreed that when one of them died, the other would try to contact their deceased spouse. For 3 years, Bess tried to make contact with her late husband. No medium was ever able to relay their prearranged code.
Cool.
Which is, I won't lie, baller as hell.
Yeah.
I feel like we should develop some sort of code between us that if one of us dies, well, I'll tell you what.
Oh.
In the event of my untimely death, fingers crossed it doesn't happen. If it does, I will do everything in my power to prove that ghosts are real. I will show up at every haunted house and I will paint the walls with like, ghosts are real. This is Ryan Bergara. Suck it, Shane. Stuff like that.
It'd be funny if if ghosts were real and you were on this mission and you died and you just went straight to hell.
Would you even hunt for me if I died?
No.
My ghost? Not even in my memory, just like one?
I'd like turn on the radio every now and then. You could do the thing that ghosts do, which is manipulate the airwaves.
What if you did a spirit box session and it was the clearest one ever, but it still sounded like,
Hi, it's me, Ryan Bergara. I told you ghosts were real. Suck my balls, big boy.
I'd be like, I don't know, dude.
Since we're unable to reliably communicate with Harry Houdini, the mystery of whether he was murdered by slighted fortune tellers or simply the victim of gastrointestinal trauma remains, like the secrets behind some of his amazing tricks, unsolved.
This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we crawled through a web of heists and robberies that have been ongoing for 25 years, most recently in 2018. The Pink Panther network of jewel thieves.
Is that why you wore this little shirt? I respect it.
It's pretty good, right?
That's some fun
Yeah.
flair. You're still having fun, even in 2020. Let's hear about a little crime, huh?
Well, not a little crime, there's a whole lot of crime.
Oh,
Actually,
okay.
it's a fun thing that you brought that up because we are going to be doing things a little bit differently for this case. It's a little bit of an unusual case for us in that we're not covering just a single case, but a whole bunch of robberies.
So this is like a Russian doll of crime
Yeah.
cases, sort of like,
Yeah, you keep opening it
Down
and you're
a
gonna
little-
get more and more surprises as you open
Okay.
it. Yeah.
I love it.
That being said, let's dive in, starting with the first case, which, in a twist for us, is solved.
In May of 2003, the flagship store of luxury jewelry retailer Graf in London was serving an eccentrically dressed customer named Naboisha Denik. Though his suit and umbrella may not have appeared unusual, his awkward pompadour wig stood out as he examined a 12-carat ring, valued at $450,000. The ring was apparently not quite what Danique was looking for, remarking that it was too glamorous, then asking, quote, "Do you have a smaller one?"
That's not what I'd be asking. I'd be saying, bigger, baby.
Is this all you guys got in this little rinky-dink shop of yours? 450K?
Too glamorous.
Yeah.
For a man with a pompadour?
It's a pompadour wig, too. Kind of defeats the purpose of a wig if everyone's like, hey, that's a weird wig. I thought the whole point of a wig was that it was supposed to...
Some people don't mind
blend.
showing off a wig. They acknowledge that it's an accessory to be used. Lady Gaga wears wigs. People like her.
Yeah, but
Gotcha!
she's not pulling off a heist.
She could if she wanted to.
I just feel like if you're going to commit a robbery, don't wear something that's very obvious. Like, yeah, she had a weird wig on.
Yeah, but while you're looking at the pompadour, while you're going, wow, what a crazy pompadour, I got my gun out.
What are you talking?
I'm throwing curveballs at you.
Yeah, but they're still going to be able to
glitter
identify.
over here. I got those little poppets that you get on 4th of July. I'm throwing those at the ground over here. I got a crazy pompadour wig. Meanwhile, I'm just taking money out the cash register, and you're going, what a crazy looking guy.
Before a more subtle piece could be offered, Danique whipped out a chrome-plated .357 Magnum and told everyone to get on the floor. At the same time, a Montenegrin man in his late 20s named Predrag Vujocevic entered the store and used a hammer to smash open display cases and remove 47 pieces of diamond jewelry.
That's it. Distraction, gun.
What if just...
Gun!
I don't get...
Gun! You see? That's the thing. That's how it works.
What if you just didn't do a distraction? You just walked in and just started the heist.
Where's the flair for the dramatic? You walk in and go, hi, everybody, I got a gun. I'm here to rob you. How about I go in with the razzle-dazzle, and then you can hop in as Mr. Hammer?
What kind of hammer are you picturing here? I was picturing like Mjolnir, like Thor's hammer for some reason. I wasn't picturing like a Home Depot hammer.
A little don't break the ice hammer.
Well, you were all about the razzle-dazzle. What happened?
You're not, though, apparently. Apparently I'm Mr. Razzle-Dazzle.
I mean, look how you're dressed, man.
That's true.
Look at that long, flowy hair. Why don't you give us a little... Yeah, there we go.
I'm here to rob you.
Now with 23 million pounds of jewelry, the two men fled the scene. Simon Stearman, a security guard, gave chase and managed to subdue Danique by sitting on him. Stearman reportedly removed Danique's wig and began berating him for it, telling the thief how dumb he looked.
Rude.
Hey man, that's a security guard who's going above and beyond the call of duty there.
Sitting on someone is not cool.
It's actually very funny.
Just imagining the person underneath being like, no, 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 no.
He's a thief, Shane. I'm just trying to figure out why you're not thrilled by a security guard who usually will see something happen and go...
Because I'm rooting for the thieves. Are you not?
I just think it's funny to sit on somebody. It's a funny way to subdue someone. Not doing any kind of like MMA moves, just the old, you ain't going nowhere.
Within days, Scotland Yard identified another accomplice in charge of the burglars' travel arrangements. One Milan Jovetic. Detectives obtained a warrant to search the apartment where Jovetic was staying with his girlfriend, Anna Stankovic.
Stankovic.
Smells like Stankovic has been here.
The search turned up 2 fake Italian passports with no names or photos, and a particular jar of face cream. In the cream was a blue diamond ring worth upwards of $750,000. The press referred to the robbers as the Pink Panthers, as a similar hiding spot was used in the 1975 comedy The Return of the Pink Panther.
What do you think about them hiding a ring in face cream? Seems kind of risky, no?
Yeah, a little risky. I don't like dipping my hands into cream, so I don't think I would do that.
Well, there's no need to lie here. We all know that you're obsessed with having lubricated hands. Your hands need to be soft and moist.
My hands are naturally soft. You would think they were constantly lubricated, but yes, they're like a baby.
Are you turning yourself on?
And I've done a lot of hard work in my life, but you wouldn't know it. It's like silk, like wet silk.
While the blue ring had been found, more than 22 million pounds of jewelry was still missing, along with Vujocevic. Scotland Yard detective Steve Alexander tracked phone records to an apartment in Paris thought to be Vujocevic's home, but Vujocevic was gone. While in Paris, Alexander met up with a special police unit called the Brigade for the Repression of Banditry to compare notes.
Banditry is a fun word to say.
It's a cool name, front to back.
What if you named your band
Elbows to asshole. It's
Banditry, like a music band?
Banditry.
And you named yourself Banditry, and you went on stage with like bandanas over your face, or like the jawbone.
Bandits. Well, I feel like you would just call yourselves the Bandits.
Yeah,
so
but
that's got to
that's
be a
like-
band out there. That exists, for
But that's
sure.
that's mainstream bullshit. Banditry.
So you want to show up like the Hamburglar? Out there with a little guitar? We're the Bandits!
It turned out, the Graf robbery in London wasn't the first time Vujocevic was suspected of robbing a jewelry store. In fact, it wasn't even the first Graf store he'd targeted. Vujocevic was wanted for robbing a Graf store in Amsterdam, a Castiglione in Paris, as well as jewelers in Frankfurt, Geneva, and Barcelona.
This guy's doing a bit of a Euro trip here.
He's bouncing all about. What is he, on a gap year?
In 2005, Vujocevic was caught trying to cross into France from Italy via car. When Alexander traveled to Paris to question Vujocevic, however, he refused to talk about the London robbery. According to his mother, Vujocevic was sentenced to 9 years in prison, but the missing diamonds were nowhere to be found.
I say if you can't find the rocks, ain't nobody doing time.
So if you can't find the
Where-
body, the
I'd be
murder's
like,
not.
Where are the rocks, bro? That's right. I'm free.
Yeah, I murdered her, but you can't find her body. Take the cuffs off. Also, I'm not convinced that that's his mom. This is a network of thieves that have already proven they love disguises. That could be just his buddy over there in a wig with like old lady makeup on. Like, yeah, I think he was in jail for 9 years. I think you did that prison over there. And it just trails off, you know how like old people do.
get you gentlemen some, how you say, tea?
She stubs her foot on like a chair and goes, ah, shit. Oh, shit.
While the London Graf heist was the crime that gave the Pink Panthers their name, it was far from the only one, and in no way encompassed the full roster of the group. According to Jeweler magazine, as of 2019, they'd stolen nearly $1 billion worth of goods across 35 countries. Let's look at a small sampling of their work. In 2001, a group robbed a jewelry store in the coastal town of Biarritz, France. Speaking to their thoroughness for planning jobs, to deter any possible witnesses, prior to the heist, the men painted a bench outside the store so no one would happen to sit there with a front row seat of the heist. In 2002, a group stole the Millennium Necklace, worth $1 million from the Venetian Casino in Las Vegas.
A Millennium Necklace? That sounds...
I told you, this is an
Shiny.
impressive list of things they have stolen.
That sounds good.
$1 million for a necklace, and it's called the Millennium Necklace.
You're asking for it, right? If you call it the Millennium Necklace, call it the dog shit diamond. No one's stealing that.
In 2003, another group of Panthers made off with $14 million of jewels from Chopard in Paris. In March 2004, 2 Serbian men in wigs stole the Contesta Vendome necklace, which featured a 125-carat diamond from a store in Tokyo. In Saint-Tropez in 2005, a group of Panthers in wigs and flower print shirts robbed a jewelry store and escaped via a waiting speedboat. Also in 2005, a group in Amsterdam dressed as airport workers transferred 75 million euros of jewelry to a waiting plane. In 2007, the Pink Panthers robbed the Harry Winston boutique in Paris with guns. The next year, they robbed the same store, dressed as women. Combined, the 2 thefts resulted in 76 million pounds of lost jewelry.
They sure do love their wigs in this group.
A wig-heavy crew.
If I were hiring robbers and I was like this big boss and I was looking through resumes, this one's jumping out from the pile, no?
Oh, big time. It makes me wish that more teams like this could assemble and we could follow them like sports.
Yeah, like stats, like fantasy robbery
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Indeed, it seems the Panthers have no qualms whatsoever about targeting a store they've already robbed. In 2009, they stole 43 pieces worth 40 million pounds from the same Graf store in London that they hit in 2003, the heist that gave them their name.
What do you think about robbing the same store twice?
I think it's very funny.
Kind of a fool me once thing, right?
I think it's very funny.
Do you think at that point it's on the store?
Oh, yeah.
Like you didn't learn your lesson the first time, maybe
They're
up the
painting
security?
the bench again. Oh, darn it.
While jewelry has been a specialty of the Pink Panthers, it is not the only luxury item they've targeted. In 2008, the group pulled off the largest art heist in European history, stealing a Monet, a Van Gogh, a Degas, and a Cézanne, in total valued at over 145 million from a gallery in Zurich. With so many big money heists to choose from, some theorize the collective's most infamous robbery took place in 2016, stealing an estimated $5.6 million worth of jewelry in Paris from one Kimberly Kardashian, including her 20-carat diamond engagement ring from Kanye West.
They weren't the ones who were like violent with her, right?
I think they were. Yeah.
Oh, I can't support them then. Then never mind, I rescind. They were mean to her. These are bad people.
They're criminals.
Well, but some criminals are fun, and I thought they were fun criminals.
They have guns. What did you think was inside the guns, silly putty?
All right.
Give me all your jewels.
Okay, I don't support these criminals anymore.
Eat Nerf balls, dork.
I do respect their sense of whimsy when it comes to wigs.
I say that it's only theorized that the Pink Panthers held up Kim Kardashian because, frankly, despite their long list of crimes, of which we've only discussed a few, not much is known about the group, who their leaders are, where they take the jewels, how they've organized, even how many people are in the group are all unknown.
Here's what I would do if they robbed me. I'd say, where do you take the jewels? And then it'd be a fun, hot little tip for the newspaper. They'd be like, well, I asked them.
You're just gonna be like,
They put them in a desk somewhere.
yeah, take it, but where are you taking it?
Yeah, go on, take it. By the way, where do you take the jewels?
I mean, give me a little something on the back end here so I could sell this to the papers.
Even the name, the Pink Panthers, is a moniker given to them by the media, not the group itself. Whenever a crime is committed, if it sounds like someone fitting a description of a Pink Panther, it's chalked up to the PP Posse, a name I have coined for the group just now.
It's a PP Posse. That's funny.
You don't like that, PP Posse?
Yeah, I love it. PP Posse.
If I was named the PP Posse, I'd be pretty pissed off.
While there's no shortage of detectives and police agencies working to track them down, as we've mentioned, there's not much confirmed information about the group. One Belgian detective, Andre Notre Dame, believes the Panther operation is made up of 20 to 30 experienced thieves, along with dozens of facilitators in cities throughout Europe providing logistical assistance, such as obtaining hotel rooms, cars, and weapons. It does seem to be that the group employs the same strategy in many cases, one they used at 152 different jewelry stores between 2002 and 2010. One well-dressed man enters the store, propping open the security door. Other associates follow through the propped door, and using hammers and pickaxes, break open display cases and stuff the jewelry into backpacks. They then leave in an older model, often stolen car.
You would think that a group of very experienced thieves would have some kind of elaborate scheme that they employ every place they go. And it's like, no, we're just gonna walk in and smash your shit up with hammers.
The nature of this group, I think, speaks to the idea that maybe they're doing it for love of the game. This sounds like it's the most proficient, capable thieves in all of Europe just banding together to be like, let's have a little fun up there, huh?
Were you not expecting more like they shimmied down the air duct and then rappelled down like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible?
I mean, but they're clearly capable of more because they did a Vegas heist, they stole some art.
Yeah, but it just boils down to somebody walking in first going, look at me! And then everyone looks at them and then people go behind them and smash glasses.
That was effective.
It's not very inventive, but it works.
Razzle-dazzle.
God damn it if it's not effective.
When that strategy won't do, the Panthers will occasionally use a tactic known as vol au bélier, which is basically smashing a storefront window for easy entry and exit of the store. In 2007, and you can find full footage of this elsewhere on YouTube, the Panthers drove 2 Audis through the doors of the Wafi Mall in Dubai, and then into the doors of the Graf store. 3 masked men ran into the store, grabbed $3.4 million in jewelry, and escaped in the getaway cars. While their strategies are brazen and what jewel heists aren't, they are not flawless. In the Dubai Graf heist, DNA evidence left in the Audis connecting the robbers to a previous job in Liechtenstein, as well as a cell number used to rent those Audis, led to police identifying 8 Panthers.
They rented the Audis and gave their numbers? Not great.
Well, you would think that if you're gonna rent a getaway car, you wouldn't use your personal cell.
Yeah. Steal it. Just steal a car.
Or use a burner.
How hard is it to steal a car?
How hard is it to get a prepaid cell phone?
If you're stealing the Millennium Diamond, you can't steal a Toyota?
We don't steal small-scale shit. That's small potatoes
We're
for the
above
Panthers.
cars.
We only steal fucking diamonds. We'll rent the Audi. Also, we're gonna use my cell phone because I have minutes.
In October of 2008, one of those men, Bosnian Dusko Poznin, drove a rented Audi into Monaco with a Serbian man, Borko Ilincic. The two men parked and headed towards a Cirabelli store, a store that had already been robbed by the Panthers in 2007. As they were crossing the street, a car suddenly hit Poznin. Poznin and Ilincic reluctantly went to the hospital, where Monaco police arrived and arrested the men.
Do you buy the fact that a car accidentally hit one of these guys that were robbing a store, or do you think a cop saw them and was just like,
Yeah, it's fishy. It's fishy. It's
Yeah.
fishy.
I mean, the cops
fishy.
get frustrated. After a while, the cat and mouse game could get to your head.
Yeah.
These guys keep crushing us with their cars. Why don't we actually crush them with a car?
While many Panthers have been arrested, the pressure to give up information has not resulted in any knowledge surrounding any sort of higher organization of the group. Because of this, it's rumored that the Panthers are actually a loose group of Serbians, Montenegrins, Bosnians, and other former Yugoslavians. Orders for targets may filter down from some unknown higher level. But many Panthers do not appear to know one another, and there may not be an actual leader.
Do you think they meet with like hoods? Do you think they meet in a location with like all of their identities hidden, with like their faces shadow, you know, it's sort of like a secret society?
Maybe, but I'm interested. Do you actually think that there is no leader?
I could believe that. I could believe that. Yes, I think that.
Or maybe it's just like a Facebook group. And they're like, hey,
Could be.
like one day a guy started the group and was like, do you guys like diamonds? I like diamonds. And then some other guy was like, yeah, I like diamonds.
I mean, Facebook's full of illegal activity.
And then
so
he
yeah.
posts like him robbing a place, and another guy's like, hey, I could do that too. We
Yeah.
post mine there.
Like.
For a group that most consider to be loose-knit, however, there still seems to be quite a bit of camaraderie amongst members, including daring attempts to break one another out of jail. In 2003, a Serbian named Dragan Mikic, one of the Panthers who in 2001 painted the bench outside the jewelry store he was robbing to deter witnesses, was arrested the day after stealing from a jewelry store in Courchevel, France. In jail, local prosecutor Gilbert Lafayette noticed how unintimidated Mikic seemed to be, saying, quote, "These guys don't care about being put into jail. They know they are going to escape," end quote. Later that year, Mikic made his first attempt, breaking away from guards after a hearing and running across a highway. Mikic was shot in the leg and sent to a more secure prison in Villefranche-sur-Saône. That prison, however, apparently turned out to be not secure enough. One day, an associate was able to toss wire cutters and a ladder over the prison wall so Mikic could escape, while another man fired AK rounds at the guards for cover. Mikic was never recaptured.
How the fuck do you walk up to a prison with a ladder and not have anybody in the tower being like, hey, there's a guy walking up to the wall right now with a ladder, maybe we should do oh shit. Oh, he's gone.
You know, the big spotlight probably wasn't on him.
Oh yeah, like a video game? And the guy in the ladder is like, oh shit.
Then, in July 2013, another Panther, Milan Paparic, was serving a 6-year sentence in Switzerland for a jewel heist in 2009. During an exercise period, a van rammed open the gate of the prison, smashing between the gate and the inside yard, under a hail of AK-47 fire. Paparic, along with another prisoner, used a ladder provided by their accomplices to get over the prison fence. The prisoners and the two men in the van set the van on fire and got in a secondary vehicle and took off at high speed. Paparic was the third Panther to escape Swiss prison in 3 months. The other two escaped Bois-Mermet prison near Lausanne in May, after an accomplice threw a sack over the prison wall containing escape equipment and a gun.
A sack. Just throw a sack over the wall. That's funny.
It's starting to make me wonder that they should maybe have a little more security outside these walls if people are just tossing various escape paraphernalia
Maybe they
over the wall.
don't care.
Would you break me out of prison if I got
No.
if I got arrested? I mean, you don't have to answer it that fast.
Oh, sorry.
I'll ask you again. Take a longer pause. No, it's not the amount of time you say no. Just take some time to think you're considering it. Here, man. If I got into prison, would you? You son of a bitch.
With members breaking one another out of prison, it seems there must be something more than a loose affiliation keeping the Panthers together. Theories around what links the group center largely on a shared geographic and cultural history, the countries of former Yugoslavia, especially Serbia, Montenegro, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. The group with an Interpol that focuses on the Pink Panthers is specifically charged with pursuing jewel thieves from the former Yugoslavia. For a little context, criminal gangs rose to dominance in Serbia during the Balkan conflicts of the 1990s. During this time, many in the region developed an animosity towards the European Union, who they viewed as failing to halt the bloodshed and corruption that was ravaging the region, while also denying immigration requests from Balkan citizens. Essentially, the former Yugoslavians felt like none of the wealthy Western Europeans cared about their plight. As a result, it's possible to look at the heists through the lens of angry former Yugoslavians who steal from Western Europe and theoretically bring the money back east.
The Robin Hood complex, I thought you'd appreciate that. I'm a big fan of punching up.
Absolutely.
You could punch up, go for it.
Yeah.
Punching down.
Don't punch down.
In a 2010 article appearing in The New Yorker about the Panthers, writer David Samuels met with a Serbian man who went by Eugene, who claimed to have knowledge of Panther operations. According to Eugene, quote, "They hate everybody. They hate Germany, the Vatican, the USA, their own governments. They're junkies who hate. You get a call from a guy, you meet 10 other guys, and you get paid. Some are cousins, some are good friends. All of them will be in prison in 5 or 10 years." End quote.
Would you heist with your pals?
Would I heist with my pals?
Answer carefully, you might hurt someone's feelings.
Big time. Big time, yeah. I would. I trust him with my life.
Which ones?
I'm just thinking of all my funny friends. I miss them. They're all in Chicago. You know.
Nobody local that you would do a heist with?
I'd probably heist with Sarah. Yeah.
Fine. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't heist with you.
Oh, us heisting? Yeah, I'd probably heist with you, I guess. Yeah.
It's too late.
I guess some of them were just acquaintances, so.
You son of a bitch. How dare you?
Despite their prolific portfolio of heists and hundreds of resulting arrests, much about the Pink Panthers remains an enigma. Estimates for how many members they count in their ranks range from dozens, not including facilitators aiding them across Europe, to hundreds. Like most theories about the Panthers, this is impossible to verify. Who is in charge of the group and who orders the heists continues to be a mystery. Where stolen items are hidden or how they are laundered is largely unknown, as well as if there exists any sort of Pink Panther headquarters. What is known, however, is that the group is anything but inactive. In 2018 alone, in 3 separate heists, the Pink Panthers stole approximately $2.3 million worth of jewelry from a Christie's exhibition in Venice, treasures from the Swedish monarchy from a cathedral, and a tiara from a British manor house. So, if you have a bunch of expensive jewelry stashed away someplace, you might want to make sure it's secure, because amongst the many mysteries surrounding the group, one stands out.
This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we walk through a ghost hunt from over 200 years ago that turned into an actual murder case, the Hammersmith ghost.
200 years ago, that sounds like peak ghost time. They all like from then?
When do you think the first ghost was?
Adam and Eve? Was one of them a ghost? I don't know how it works.
I don't know.
Was Jesus the first ghost?
We're getting a little off track here.
Okay, yes, we are. You're right.
A supernatural case that turned into a true crime case or a murder case.
It's a beautiful marriage of the two shows.
It's funny because over the years doing this show, I've often thought of making our supernatural cases into murder cases.
What is that supposed to mean, you son of a bitch?
Let's get into it.
Okay.
On the north bank of a winding section of the River Thames in London sits the village of Hammersmith, while less than 5 miles west of Buckingham Palace. In the early 19th century, Hammersmith represented the border between the countryside and the city. And in late 1803, this village of freshly built homes had a ghost problem. Late at night, a tall specter covered in a white shroud would emerge to roam the areas around Black Lion Lane. Thought to be the spirit of a villager who had slit his own throat the year prior, the ghost would accost, harass, and sometimes even attack travelers out late.
This sounds like a level 10 ghoul.
A level 10 ghoul.
If it's wearing a white sheet like Charlie Brown.
I don't know what white shroud mean. That could mean a blanket, or that could mean it's shrouded in like a white mist.
I think it's a classic boo ghost.
I'm gonna say it's a mist because no one's gonna get scared of a little sheet with holes cut into it.
I have to disagree. Erase from your mind the concept of the classic boo ghost.
Yeah.
Now suddenly a boo ghost appears.
Oh, it's a boo ghost.
You seen that as a boo ghost?
He's just wearing my sheets.
That's not how you'd react. You know that if you were 200 years ago and ain't never seen a boo ghost, you'd be screaming bloody murder.
I think it's disrespectful to think 200 years ago someone wouldn't go, that's a guy under a sheet.
You wearing a sheet, mate. Like that.
Yeah, like that. You just, get out under there.
What are you wearing a sheet for, mate?
I'll get out of there, mate. This man's pissed drunk.
He's wearing his bed.
In one incident, the driver of an 8-horse wagon carrying 16 passengers became so frightened by the ghost that he fled on foot, abandoning his passengers and horses.
It's a big ass wagon for you to leave behind and be like, see you later. Just taking off.
Oh, that's true. You don't want to leave that wagon.
I guess not. The horses were probably confused.
Imagine the trim on that baby. Probably mahogany.
Maybe.
Damn, dude.
Just sanded to perfection.
Sanded to
Just like
perfection.
slides
Probably
off
some
the
gold
skin.
leaf.
Maybe. Just slides off the skin like butter.
Smoking, man.
Anyways, don't leave your wagon full of passengers behind. The horses are probably scared too.
Oh, 8 horses whinnying at the same time? That's deafening.
Watching your master run off while there's like some boo ghost going, woo.
Yeah.
I still don't think it's a dude in a sheet. I think it's like a white mist around this thing. People describe ghosts as having like a white
It's like an
aura.
ethereal, okay, I see,
Yeah, like a
yes.
glow.
Wisps.
I haven't seen that. So
No, you certainly haven't.
in a ghost, the ghost I saw looked like a person.
Why don't you continue the story?
One man, Thomas Groom, described walking through a churchyard with his hands in his pockets and a jacket under his arm, when from behind a tombstone, someone grabbed him by the neck with 2 hands. The hands spun Groom around, but there was no one to be seen. When he pushed out with his fist, it felt as though he were punching a large coat, but he didn't contact anything solid.
And I'll just go for a stroll through the...
You know he's not telling it that way though. This is like a war story. Like, so there I was, walking through the cemetery, and then all of a sudden I got these 2 hands on my neck, and I turn around and I knock him out. I fucking killed a ghost, mate. I fucking killed a ghost.
How do you grab someone and then turn? Because that's not easy. Can you imagine doing
Well,
that?
I mean, like if it's a ghost, we're talking about the laws of physics being broken.
Yeah, I guess so.
What do you think about him punching and not feeling anything solid, but feeling like a coat?
Boy, I'd give $1 million to watch this guy do that. If
watch?
you were just like eating an apple by a tree and you saw this guy walking around, just look like a horse's ass. I'd be like, you all right?
In another incident, a pregnant woman was walking near the churchyard around 10 p.m. Suddenly, a white specter materialized from the tombstones and came after the woman. She tried to run away, but was caught. The ghost began to press her into his arms, and the woman fainted. A few hours later, some neighbors found the woman, woke her, and took her home. There, she reportedly went to bed and never awoke.
Just
Good
when you think you're
Lord.
out of the woods, you got bear hugged by a ghost.
It's strange for a ghost to,
Hug someone, right?
yeah.
To embrace. That's why they're lethal. Yeah, actually, I am curious. Do you think it's possible to have a literal heart attack because you were of so much fright attacked your body at that moment that you had a heart attack? Is
Yeah,
that possible?
I think that happens all the time.
It makes me scared about all these places we go to
Yeah, because you could die.
because I could just straight up get killed.
I'd probably be making fun of you the whole time too.
Is
And then
there
you'd-
anything more embarrassing than finding my stiff corpse in the middle of a dusty hallway with that stupid erector set camera on my chest and a spirit box in one hand? It is just,
Especially because we'd have the GoPro footage of your still face.
and then I communicate with you through the spirit box.
Yes.
And I'm going, I'm God, Shane, save me. Please take me to the hospital. Kid still has time.
And I'm like, you didn't turn this fucking thing off.
The citizens of Hammersmith began to stay inside after dark unless absolutely necessary, and made a point of avoiding the areas with reported sightings. Some villagers, however, became convinced that what was haunting their town was no ghost at all, but simply a person wearing a sheet, and they were tired of living in fear.
Would you hold a town hall meeting and be like, we gotta stop this guy?
Yeah, I would. I'd literally get some pitchforks.
Just a pitchfork, a torch.
Yeah.
You'd be pretty scary with a pitchfork and a torch, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I
Especially
already have
because
sort
the
of
pitchfork would look like a fork.
Someone on Twitter told me I have colonizer hair right now.
Yeah, it's got a point.
I look like a pilgrim.
I mean, you might as well complete the whole set. Get that pitchfork.
I do look like I'm about to burn some witches.
Maybe get a rosary.
Just this with pitchfork.
Scripture.
Respect the scripture!
Determined to catch this public nuisance, some men in Hammersmith set up armed patrols to survey the streets at night in hopes of catching the culprit. Unfortunately, it proved impossible to monitor the countless routes in and out of Hammersmith, and the spirit continued to terrorize residents. One night, a patrolman spotted the specter and gave chase. He later reported seeing the spirit rip off a large white cloth before escaping pursuit.
Now, is this the actual origin of the sort of Boo Ghost white sheet?
No, of course not. They were doing that to scare people into thinking they were a ghost. So obviously it had been popularized in some form before that.
So now we've arrived at the more tangible true crime element of it, where it is sort of someone up to some hijinks.
By January 3rd, 1804, 29-year-old Francis Smith had had quite enough of the hauntings. The fact that someone was scaring his fellow villagers and the fact that this person had thus far eluded capture infuriated him. Smith resolved to bring the ghost down once and for all. According to some reports, Smith prepped for his patrol by drinking in a pub.
Anybody knows the best way to prep for your first day as a vigilante is to pre-game it at a pub.
I respect this guy that he's had enough of the ghost because it's bothering his lads.
It's true.
A real sense of community there.
He's a protector,
Yeah.
a guardian.
So at least his intentions are good, even if he's 100% going to die
Yeah.
in the midst of a drunken stupor.
Well, you know, Guinness can often muddle good intentions.
It was certainly a time of heightened nerves in Hammersmith, and few were as well acquainted with that fact as Thomas Millwood. Millwood worked as a bricklayer and, as such, wore a uniform of white linen trouser, a white flannel waistcoat, and a white apron.
All white.
Yeah. Oh no!
You may see where this is going. Stay tuned.
Oh boy.
Millwood had twice been mistaken for the Hammersmith ghost while walking at night in his all-white getup. One time, a man and two women riding in a carriage spotted Millwood and shouted, quote, "There goes the ghost," end quote. Millwood said he was no more the ghost than the man in the carriage, then asked the man if he'd like a punch in the head.
Could you imagine being politely asked, would you like a punch in the head? Obviously the answer is no, but
Yeah.
for a split second I'd be like, no, yeah, obviously no. But
Yeah.
the way you asked it made me think like, you're asking me if I'd like to go to the pub or something. I'm like, I'd love to go to the pub.
What if it was more aggressive though, like, do you like a punch in the head?
Oh yeah, that's a little more mean.
No.
Then the answer is definitely a no.
In an effort to stop folks from suspecting her husband of being a ghost, Millwood's wife asked him to cover his work clothes while in public. Millwood refused.
I just don't know what the logic is. Like if someone told me, hey, they're on the lookout for a person dressed in all white at night.
And they're ready to kill this guy.
So I think you should maybe not wear all white
Yeah.
at night.
Fuck you. Where do you get off?
On the evening of January 3rd, the night Francis Smith resolved to stop the Hammersmith ghosts' reign of terror, Millwood stopped by his parents' home to chat with his mother and sister Anne. Meanwhile, Francis Smith was on patrol. Around 10:30 p.m., Smith encountered watchman William Girdler in Beaver Lane. When Smith told Girdler he'd planned to hunt the ghost that night, Girdler said he'd join the man after he finished calling the hour and surveying the lanes.
He's probably so jazzed as it gets close to any hour.
It's 11 p.m. and all is well.
Get inside, my name is William Girdler.
It's me, Girdler, once again.
11:01.
And it's 11 p.m. Get ready to go to sleep. I love you.
Shut the hell up out there, we got Big Ben.
I love you, I said.
It was a particularly dark night, reportedly impossible to see objects even on the other side of the road. So Smith and Girdler arranged a secret greeting so they'd know it was the other. Quote, friend, advance friend, end quote.
We could do that in haunted houses.
Yeah, it'd be fun. So you say friend, I say advance, friend.
Yeah, it's reciprocated because we're friends. Because we're friends, right?
Yes, we are friends.
I feel good about it. Yeah, it's good.
I don't know how many times I have to tell you.
I don't believe it any time.
Well, I don't say it with a lot of,
Yeah, you're right. We should change the greeting. Maybe it's just in the dark. I go, hey, dipshit. And then you respond,
get on over here, my buddy boy. What the fuck? Is that good?
Late into the night, back at Thomas Millwood's parents' home, the bricklayer finally got up to return home to his wife. He said his goodbyes, left, and closed the door behind him. As his sister Anne got up and moved towards the door, she heard a voice outside call, quote, damn you, who are you and what are you? Damn you, I will shoot you, end quote.
Sounds like he's gonna get shot.
well, I mean, I'll say this. He certainly did say what he was going to do before he did it.
Called his shot.
He did call his shot.
Yeah.
Probably a good time to chime in with, I'm not a ghost. Please
Now-
no, stop.
Millwood's sister Anne saw a flash of light as the sound of a gunshot tore through the night. She called out to her brother from the window, but got no reply. She ran out of the house and down the lane, where she found her brother lying in the street. By the time she was halfway to him, she knew he was dead. There was no one else around. Francis Smith retreated to the White Hart pub, where he met up with the watchman, Girdler.
It's rounds on me, everybody!
He just
I've killed the ghoul!
pops open the doors like saloon. Everyone pack your bags. We're good to go home. Ghost is dead. All right. Do you think Smith and Girdler still did their little friend, advance, friend?
Oh, big time.
Like outside the bar, but he said friend in a way that Girdler knew he had done the deed. Friend!
Advance, friend!
Smith, Girdler, and two more men made their way back to whoever the heck it was Smith had shot. Smith confessed to Girdler that he feared he had hurt the man badly. For his part, Girdler noted he had heard Smith's gunshot, but didn't think much about it. Apparently, gunshots happened very frequently in the area. Quote, every quarter of an hour, almost all night, end quote.
If you live in a place and a time where guns are going off every 15 minutes,
Yeah.
is it perhaps ill-advised to dress as a ghost to scare people on the streets at night during, in that town? I used to play a lot of pranks on my roommates, and I would always be scared of scaring them if I thought they had like a glass of water or something in their hand, or like an iPhone, because I figured they might break or they
Break
might toss
iPhone.
the water at me.
Yeah.
So I could only imagine if they were walking around our shitty house with a gun. Probably not the best idea to get a good boo in.
I don't think you'd get your booze in if that was the case.
I don't think I would either.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd get one boo in. It'd be the last boo I ever booed.
Boo!
Look, obviously this guy is a dum-dum. The vigilante Smith.
Yeah.
But he seems to feel remorseful that he just killed a man in cold blood on the street because he thought he was a phantom. So
Do you think, though, when he got there, he was like, I think I've killed the ghost. And the other guy was like, oh, yeah? And he was like, yeah. And he had a sister. He was leaving his sister's house. Yeah. And, you know, he had a heartbeat. He said, don't shoot, I'm not a ghost.
it just slowly dawns on him.
Maybe we should go check on him, huh? Have I done a whoopsie?
When the men got to the body, they found Smith's shot had struck Millwood in his jaw. Girdler carried Millwood's lifeless body to the Black Lion pub. A surgeon summoned by the coroner reported that Smith's shot had penetrated the lower left jaw, vertebrae in the neck, and the spinal marrow. The coroner deemed the matter willful murder, and a remorseful Smith surrendered to authorities, who took him to jail to await trial at the Old Bailey.
I did shoot him in the jaw.
I did shoot him with my ghost gat.
Very funny they bring a surgeon to a bar. I guess that's sort of the meeting point in town.
That's the good thing about pubs in London.
Yeah.
Every person of every occupation is probably at the pub because it's very much a social thing. At any given moment, you could have the surgeon, the coroner, and you probably have a lawyer and a judge. You could finish the whole case right there in the pub.
On January 13th, the trial that ensued became a pretty important one in English legal history. While Smith admitted to killing Millwood, he was adamant that it was by mistake and entered a plea of not guilty. Throughout the trial, Smith showed a great deal of shame and remorse. He was physically unable to stand without the aid of someone else, and he had difficulty even getting words out in his own defense. According to one report, quote, "The pallid hue of his countenance during the whole trial, together with the signs of contrition which he exhibited, commanded the sympathy of every spectator," end quote.
It seems like he got swept up in this ghost fever.
Yeah.
I almost feel bad for him. He was probably a little blottoed,
Yeah, he got a little ahead of his skis there.
Yeah, that's right. I can see why he would feel remorseful. He's trying to save everyone in town and do a good thing by shooting this ghost.
Yeah.
And then he does it while maybe a little tipsy, who knows? And he regrets it. He feels bad.
Smith testified that upon calling out twice to the white figure nearing him and receiving no response, he became so much agitated by what he presumed was now an actual ghost that he fired his gun out of panicked fear.
When I'm out there looking for ghosts, I hear noises, I'll think it's a ghost in that moment, and then I'll go back and I'll analyze the evidence and then be able to make that determination later.
Right.
But if my methodology involved shooting everything I thought was a ghost,
Be a lot of dead people.
be a lot of dead people. Probably you'd be dead as well, honestly.
You'd be locked up.
I'd be behind bars.
Yeah.
And I'd be just saying the whole time, look how many ghosts I caught.
After all witnesses were heard, the judge presiding over the case, Lord Chief Baron MacDonald, addressed the jury, explaining that nothing in the case could make the offense anything but murder. He gave the example of a man setting out with the intent to shoot not a ghost, but a highway robber. If that man shot someone he thought was a highway robber, but who turned out not to be, that was still murder. He also reminded the jury that, as disgusted as Smith may have been at the fact someone was terrorizing the village dressed as a ghost, that did not entitle him to go out with a loaded gun and shoot the person.
I think it doesn't really matter if you believe what you're doing is right in your heart.
Yeah, because you
should
could be
not
a
want-
serial killer and be like,
Yeah.
look, it's my passion. I believe what I do is art. And simply to achieve my artistic creation, I have to paint with human organs. Sue me. Why you take me to prison? What's happening?
Nevertheless, after an hour of deliberation, the jury came back with a verdict. Smith was guilty of manslaughter, a charge that had not been brought against him. The judge reminded the jury this was not an option available to them. They were either to convict or acquit Smith of murder and murder alone. The judge further emphasized his point by reminding the jurors that even if Millwood had been someone posing as a ghost, Smith would still be on trial for murder. The justices on the cases noted that even if a police officer killed someone he was entitled to apprehend, that was also still murder.
Juicy. Some juicy legal drama.
Killing someone's killing someone. Doesn't matter if you're like you're thinking you're killing a ghost or if you're a cop killing a murderer or like a robber or something. It's still a murder.
Perhaps we as human beings should not take it upon ourselves to end anyone's life.
That's probably a good plan.
The jury apparently believed that some consideration should be made for the fact that at the time, Smith truly believed he was firing a bullet at a ghost. Since there was no room in the law for this interpretation, however, the jury reconvened and came to the decision that yes, Smith certainly had murdered Millwood. Smith was sentenced to be hanged the following Monday. Because of the great deal of interest the case had garnered, however, Lord Chief Baron MacDonald immediately referred the case to the Crown, who swiftly ordered a, quote, respite during pleasure, end quote.
I mean, it seems like a lot of the public are feeling sympathy for this guy.
Well, they wanted that ghost in the net.
For sure.
They wanted that ghost netted.
But
for sure.
meanwhile,
ASAP.
this quote unquote ghost is still out there,
That's true.
allegedly. Or maybe the ghost was like, oh, I'm gonna pack it up now.
Yeah. I didn't know this guy had ghost bullets. All right. My haunted days are over. I'm going to the next
I'm
town.
imagining the ghost walking up on the scene and seeing the guy and just being like, oh, just as he shoots the other guy and being like,
By January 25th, King George III had pardoned Smith, requiring him to serve a 1-year sentence of hard labor instead of hanging.
I'd say that's a hell of a cutoff from hanging to your death to being like, hey, pick up some trash for a year.
I mean, it does sound like he was genuinely remorseful.
He did
and I
murder
get it. He
somebody.
murdered someone.
I think this guy got off with a little slap on the wrist when you
Yeah.
consider what could have been the alternative.
I mean, 200
Which
years
was,
ago, though, hard labor, probably hard.
While Smith escaped the gallows for shooting the unfortunately dressed Millwood, there's still an unsettled matter at the heart of this story. Who was the ghost of Hammersmith? Our first theory is the ghost was nothing more than a shoemaker by the last name of Graham trying to spook some employees. Graham was arrested in January of 1804, charged with being a nuisance, as he would reportedly go out at night dressed in a blanket. Graham claimed he only donned the costume in an attempt to scare some apprentices who had frightened his children with ghost stories, though he was spotted by more than just the apprentices. Even the watchman Girdler reportedly saw Graham.
Sounds like a funny guy.
He is one of the ghosts, it seems like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he definitely dressed up like a ghost.
Yeah, no disputing that.
Grimly, Graham was a singer at the church and even sang at Millwood's funeral, a funeral that was the direct result of the hysteria over the Hammersmith ghost.
He was like, wait a minute, I dressed up like a ghost too? Hang on.
After Graham's confession, the Hammersmith ghost seemingly did stop making appearances. According to one source, however, Graham was only responsible for one appearance of the ghost on December 29th, leading to our next theory.
Look, you can never make sweeping judgments like this, but I would say him feeling protective of his children like that makes me think that he wouldn't hug a pregnant woman to death.
No, don't read spooky stories to my children.
You spooked my boys.
Could you imagine if someone came up to us in the middle of the street and yelled that at us?
They have.
My children won't stop watching you on the YouTube and now they won't sleep.
Would you like a punch in the face?
Our second theory is that multiple people were responsible for dressing up as the ghost. It's unclear whether it would have been a coordinated group or rather individuals taking advantage of a legend to have some fun at the expense of their neighbors.
I like the idea that it's a group of people because this reminds me of when there was those
The clown sightings.
clown sightings.
Yeah.
And that seemed like it was different people all over the country who caught wind of like maybe one sighting and then were like, yeah, let's make this happen.
That was around the time when we saw a clown in Mexico.
Yes, it was.
And that was scary. We had a clown walk up to our car and he was cleaning our window. And after about 20 seconds of him cleaning our window, I realized he had no cleaning supplies. He was just miming
He was
cleaning our
miming
window.
it.
And we all just sat there in terrified silence as we watched
Didn't you
this
not
clown go.
You're like, I hope that light changes soon. Well, so yes, it could have been though. It could have been a group like that.
Indeed, while sightings of the ghost stopped after Graham admitted to trying to scare his apprentices, the ghost resurfaced in 1824, this time with hooks and reportedly even the ability to breathe fire. This iteration turned out to be a young farmer who was caught and sent to the House of Corrections. Despite this, in 1932, Hammersmith was yet again troubled by reports of a ghostly being, one dressed in white that could climb walls and bushes using long claws.
It's very scary to imagine a boo ghost, you know,
A boo ghost, yes.
with a sheet scrambling up a wall. Imagine all the sort of billowing going on.
Him scrambling, making screeching noises.
I don't give a shit.
Our final theory is that an actual ghost haunted and continues to haunt Hammersmith. Some locals claim that every 50 years at midnight on a full moon, the Hammersmith churchyard is visited by a white specter floating through the graves.
Yeah, it's probably just somebody dicking around.
I mean, if there really is a ghost, at least Millwood didn't die because of a little prank. There was actually a ghost in Hammersmith.
Yeah, it probably wasn't, but yeah.
Of course, it's possible all three theories are responsible. Perhaps some townspeople saw an actual ghost in Hammersmith. Word spread, and some folks with an extra sheet lying around decided to dress up as it, including the shoemaker Graham.
I do think it's possible that there was an actual ghost sighting that spread to a couple people, and then, like we just said, it took a little bit of a life of its own, and people started to dress up as the ghost.
My money's on flesh and blood, baby. As someone who doesn't believe in ghosts, if I were walking alone at night and someone in a sheet came up to me and hugged me,
Yeah.
I'd be upset.
Well, as someone who has seen a ghost,
Yes.
I did see the ghost and I didn't faint and die, so, you know.
Or did you?
No, I'm alive.
Oh, yeah, no.
I'm alive. I'm
Or are you?
No,
yeah.
The case of Francis Smith spurred debate about self-defense law in England that wouldn't be fully clarified until the early 1980s. One thing, however, is quite certain. If you see a ghost, don't fire a gun at it. If it is a ghost, a bullet's probably not going to do much to it anyway. And while some claim the ghost of Thomas Millwood haunts the Black Lion pub where the watchman Girdler brought his lifeless body, as for whether Hammersmith was haunted by someone playing a deadly...
This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we discussed the sudden disappearance of Cynthia Anderson, who vanished from her job in Toledo, Ohio almost 40 years ago.
I don't like the sound of that. Vanishing from your job? I would rather vanish from my home.
That's true.
Vanishing on the job, you're still working and then you just want to go home for the day. Too bad, you got vanished.
All right, let's just get into it.
In August of 1981, Cynthia Jane Anderson was preparing for a new chapter in her life. The 20-year-old had been raised in a very religious household of Christian fundamentalists, following a schedule packed with church prayer meetings, church swimming events, church camping trips, seasonal church parties, and church worship on Sundays. Cynthia's father, Michael Anderson, described Cynthia as a quiet, obedient type of girl who never made waves, yet had lots of friends.
It's too much church. Can't be going to church that much, right? Too much church.
I mean, look, I don't know if we need to turn this into a commentary on the church.
It's not a commentary, I'm just saying it's too much church.
She was a woman of faith who wasn't making any trouble. That's all that's communicating there.
I mean, she could have made trouble. If I were going to church that much, I'd kill someone.
Cynthia was described by a neighbor as an attractive young woman, one who, quote, maybe caught the attention of a passerby, end quote. And while her parents insisted on strict rules and curfews while at home, Cynthia nevertheless had a boyfriend, also a part of the church. That summer, her father said Cynthia had been spending a lot of time on her face and becoming a bit of a debutante.
We've all got phases in our lives where we're spending a lot of time on our faces, acting a bit like a debutante. We all do that. I do that every day. Spend a lot of time on my face.
Clearly.
You think this took 7.5 hours today?
I don't
The
believe
whole
it,
ensemble?
but I do believe it at the same time, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So, you know, can't judge someone for that.
Cynthia worked as a legal secretary in Toledo, Ohio, but was preparing to quit in order to attend Bible college, the same one in which her boyfriend was currently enrolled. And by the way things were going at the office, her last day at work couldn't come soon enough.
Sounds like a bad work environment.
Sounds like some foreshadowing here.
Can't be fun to be a secretary at a law firm.
Also, in this time, especially probably not so.
Trying to think of a good lawyer joke. Because lawyers, nobody likes them, right?
No, you're doing great. This is good stuff.
You got a lawyer joke?
No, I was actually just kind of just watching.
Look, we haven't toured the Borscht Belt, okay? We're not comedians. We're just a couple of assholes.
Unnerving events had begun to happen at work. The previous year, on a wall across from her office window, someone painted the words, "I love you, Cindy," in large letters, along with a smaller, by GW. According to one of her friends, Cynthia was the only Cindy who worked on that side of the strip mall where the law office was located. The sign seemed intentionally placed in order for Cynthia to see it. Cynthia apparently had no idea who GW could have been. The message remained up for 6 months before finally being covered up.
6 months?
Don't do this to people. Don't be painting "I love you" on buildings. It's not fun for anybody.
No.
Maybe if you're asking someone to homecoming.
Yeah, like a homecoming or prom.
Fun.
You can paint that all you want.
Paint it.
Paint it in big ass letters.
Put it on the side of a barn.
HC question mark.
Yeah, you don't want to write all the letters.
No, I mean,
HCW me? Question mark? From question mark, and then you're like the Riddler. You send like a little Blair Witch thing with a bunch of twigs and some blood or something.
A few weeks later, the same message reappeared, this time in even larger letters. The sign, however, would soon become the least of Cynthia's worries.
What do you think of the strategy of like, all right, first sign didn't work. Let's make it bigger.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of, when people are obsessed, I'm going to guess they're not really thinking logically. This person is not like, well, I guess that didn't work and I should hang it up.
Yeah.
Clearly they're like, well, I guess the issue was it wasn't scary enough.
Obviously, she couldn't see it. She couldn't read it. Okay, I'll make it bigger and I'll make the font brighter.
Not the move.
Not the move. If you're taking notes out there, don't do that.
In that summer of '81, Cynthia began to be harassed by anonymous phone calls with disturbing, ominous messages. One of the law firm's clients, Larry Mullins, recalled a time when Cynthia received a call while he was in the office. Mullins said Cynthia picked up the phone and quickly hung up, only for the phone to ring again soon afterwards. According to Mullins, Cynthia's face betrayed the fact that, quote, she was scared, honestly, sincerely scared, end quote. Cynthia began experiencing recurring nightmares in which she would be kidnapped and murdered by a stranger. Due to the phone calls and Cynthia's growing and understandable paranoia, her employers instructed her to keep the office's doors locked at all times, even during business hours. They also installed an emergency buzzer at her desk, which would alert a nearby business if she were to use it. Unfortunately, these precautions would turn out to be inadequate.
Jesus
That
Christ.
sounds like a waking nightmare.
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
And also kind of crazy that they did take these precautions and that they weren't enough.
Yeah, it's odd that they're like, well, you're in peril. It seems like you're in perilous danger. Here's a button.
I mean, they installed the, it's unfortunately dangerous to be a woman button, and they gave her that, and that still wasn't enough. Which, by the way, they should have a security detail there, not just a light that shows nearby businesses in the strip mall that she's in trouble. I don't know what anybody who's like working in Aunt Anne's Pretzels is gonna do if they see that red light go off. It's not like...
It's Auntie Anne's.
Oh, is it Auntie Anne's?
Have some fucking respect.
On Tuesday, August 4th, 1981, Cynthia skipped breakfast and left her parents' home around 8:30 a.m. She drove to the law office on East Manhattan Boulevard and was seen as late as 9:45 a.m. Around noon, her employer, attorney James Rabbit, arrived at the office. The lights and radio were on, but there was no sign of Cynthia. The scent of nail polish or nail polish remover reportedly hung in the air. Cynthia was known to leave a note and place the phones on hold if she was stepping out of the office, but she hadn't done either. There was no sign of a struggle, and according to some reports, the office door was still locked from the inside. Though her car, a 1980 Chevy Citation, was still in the parking lot, her keys and purse were missing. Perhaps most eerily, a romance novel that Cynthia had been reading was left open on her desk, turned to a page that described the protagonist being abducted at knife point.
That's weird, huh?
She was reading it, but for it to be open at that page suggests we're dealing with an abductor here who's a real a-hole, who has a flair for the dramatic.
But then what is the abductor reading through the book? What, like if this is broad daylight.
In the middle of an office.
At any moment, someone could come in.
The door...
He's not taking the time to thumb through a book for a funny little clue.
Unless he had been watching her so much that he had the book himself, knew which page to turn to, and then did that.
Maybe.
It seems weirdly coincidental, especially when you consider all the other things.
Oh yeah, I guess it could just be a coincidence, yeah.
With a woman missing and precious few clues to help us, it's time to dive into theories about what happened to Cynthia Anderson these 39 years ago. Our first theory is that an obsessed stalker kidnapped Cynthia. Between the phone calls and the I love you Cindy sign, it seems someone definitely wanted to get the young woman's attention. Detective William Adams of the Toledo Police Department said investigators worked with Cynthia's friends to try to figure out who GW could be. They were able to turn up only one suspect, A maintenance man with those initials who worked in the building and had keys to all the office doors. No evidence was ever found indicating the man was somehow responsible, however, and no charges were ever brought.
It's odd to put your own initials if you're trying to be a creep.
That's
right?
true, but this is also the same person who thought it was maybe, oh, the letters weren't big enough. Let's try that and give that another go.
Yeah.
So who knows? But I would also assume there's security cameras, and it can't be good for job security to start an art display on the opposite building within view of all your employers. As much as this may be compelling, it seems a little too easy.
Eventually, the man who spray painted the I Love Cindy sign reportedly did come forward. He said the message was intended for a different Cynthia. And once again, he was never charged.
Huh?
The guy who wrote the thing. said
Yeah?
He came forward, and it was intended for a different person.
What? What are we doing here?
I'm putting us into the mind of the investigators here.
A different Cynthia.
Yeah,
Did she see it?
I actually don't know that.
I would have asked. Sounds like bad investigators. I'd been like, tell me your story. How'd you meet?
She's my wife
Are you
now.
in love? We're married. We have
She
six kids.
loved the sign. She loved it. And they'd be like, did she see it? And he would say, you tell me. Shows the ring.
Yeah.
She's
Oh,
my
I thought
wife.
he had a finger missing. You tell me. She bit my finger off.
Yeah.
Strange that they wouldn't look into this guy, huh?
Well, I guess they did. We actually reached out to see what came of that, but he wasn't charged, and I guess it wasn't for that Cynthia, which they must have verified somehow, which means to me he must have married said Cynthia
Yeah,
or
you
been
nailed it.
together with that Cynthia, because
Yeah.
they would be like, well, oh, of course it was that other Cynthia.
Show us your Cynthia.
He's like,
Where
"Oh,
is she?"
Jesus Christ, here's my wallet. There's 4 kids. See, you can see that Cynthia. That's me and her, please.
Flip, 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 flip.
A month after Cynthia disappeared, police received an anonymous phone call from a nervous, whispering female voice. The caller claimed Cynthia Anderson was being held in the basement of a white house. There were apparently 2 houses next to one another, owned by the same out-of-town family. The woman on the phone claimed to know the son of the family was the one holding Cynthia. Police begged for more details, but the caller hung up. Searches for houses like the one described yielded nothing.
Well, that's terrifying, Ryan. That's no fun. I don't like to hear that. I've said this before, but teens, when they get crank calling, they're out of control.
I hope
And
not.
I can see them being like, did you hear about this lady who went missing in our town? Oh, I dare you to call the cops. Tell them you seen her.
Well,
Okay, Jonesy.
if I had a kid who did that,
You'd lock him in the shed.
he'd get a talking to. That's all I'd have
yeah,
to say.
talking to is probably more reasonable.
Which, in the Bergara family, means locking them in the
Oh,
shed.
yeah.
Our next theory is that Cynthia Anderson was murdered, perhaps for overhearing information about a drug deal. One of the attorneys working in the same office as Cynthia in 1981 was Richard Neller. In turn, one of Neller's clients was Jose Rodriguez Jr. In 1996, Neller and Rodriguez were both convicted for involvement in a long-time drug conspiracy. Authorities theorized that Cynthia could have perhaps overheard Neller and Rodriguez discussing some drug deals. She would then have been kidnapped and murdered to secure her silence. In Rodriguez's 1995 trial, one informant testified that Rodriguez had admitted to having murdered the young woman while threatening Neller, whom he accused of representing him poorly. The judge ruled the admittance unreliable, concluding there was insufficient evidence to say either Neller or Rodriguez were involved in her disappearance, or that she had been kidnapped or murdered at all.
That's a strange thing to lie about, though.
You know, but it
I
seems
know,
to be...
I know we always go over this like, well, sometimes people lie about it because it's a trophy for them or
It's
whatever.
really weird.
Who would do that?
It's weird to me how often this occurs, though, that somebody will willingly confess to something, and then
No
people
way.
will be like, don't believe you.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. Let's keep investigating.
Especially if they were like, sorry, we got you on these drug charges. How do you plead? I killed a lady.
2 other possible murderers are brothers Anthony and Nathaniel Cook. Over the course of 16 months in the 1980s, the 2 brothers murdered at least 9 people across Ohio, mostly young women. In 2000, as part of a plea deal with the prosecutor in Lucas County, the same county whence Cynthia disappeared, the Cook brothers confessed on tape to many homicides, though they denied killing Cynthia Anderson.
It's embarrassing to murder with your brother.
E-
Can you imagine?
What?
To murder with your brother?
That's what you took from that?
It's embarrassing.
How is that? I mean, it's embarrassing to murder, yeah.
If I went to my brother and said, ooh, I'm fired up, I'm gonna murder Ryan Bergara.
Okay.
Can you help me? I hope that he would say, maybe sleep on it.
This is being taped, right? I
Yeah.
feel like this is like a recounted conversation.
Our third theory is that Cynthia ran away. The Anderson household had been described as a strict one, as Cynthia's sister described, quote, "My parents wanted us involved with church, and we were," end quote. Perhaps Cynthia, staring down the barrel of attending Bible college with a boyfriend who was also a part of the church, wanted to see the world apart from her sheltered vantage point, and walking away was the easiest way to do so. As we already mentioned, Cynthia's father had noted her further taking interest in her looks and dieting in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. He suggested these changes may have, quote, contributed to his daughter going missing, end quote.
This is a thin line to walk,
A lot of church.
and I didn't want to front load the episode with this, but it seems like it's unavoidable now.
A lot of church.
You can't just keep saying a lot of church.
A lot of church.
I mean, it would,
Church. What are you doing Sunday? Church. Tuesday, church. Wednesday, church. How about some church? Want to do more church? What's your boyfriend like? Well, he likes church. What do you guys do for fun? Church.
it's true, it's a lot of church.
What are you going to study in school? More church. We study Bible. Unfortunately.
Moderation,
What are you going to be doing for the rest of your life? Just church?
moderation
I'm
is key.
out of there.
Moderation is key.
I'm bleaching my hair. I'm plucking all my eyelashes out.
That's crazy.
I'm
man.
getting out of there, man.
The runaway theory is bolstered by the absence of any signs of struggle and the fact that the doors to the law office were locked. However, there was apparently a substantial amount of money left in her bank account, which would have helped her start a new life if that were her intention.
You know, she could have met someone else, right?
No, also,
Some heathen,
here's the thing.
a hot heathen who was like, come on, hit the road with me. I got cash. Leave it all here.
Is that I was just about to get to that because I was going to say that, like, I know a lot of people online point out that, okay, starting over is expensive, obviously. However, if you want to successfully make it seem like you've disappeared, you don't then pull out all the money from your bank account.
Right.
That doesn't scan.
Also, it's 1981. You work at Baskin Robbins for a summer, you can buy a house. Is it possible
There we go.
she was the one who made the phone call about, leading them on a wild goose chase to look for a white house to throw them off her scent?
Now
Whispering,
that's-
harder to identify her voice, because a whisper, you can't totally tell who that is.
Well, that would explain the lack of detail in the tip.
Yeah.
Look, I'll say this. I know a lot of the time when we talk about these disappearance cases, there's always inevitably a theory about the person just vanishing themselves.
Yeah.
And it seems like we lean into that theory because, frankly, it's the most happy theory to get behind.
Sure.
But in this case, this one actually has a lot of weight to it. And I actually do genuinely think it makes the most sense out of all the theories.
I do too.
Because if you just plug in all the circumstantial evidence, which is what we use to say, like, I think that guy's the murderer, if you do that formula, this theory is the one that makes the most sense. The lack of struggle, the door being locked from the inside, her not doing the things she usually does when she steps away from the office. It makes sense for what it's worth. And I didn't even think about the phone tip. Maybe you have somewhat of a detective brain.
Cynthia, thanks for watching.
I believe it. I've stamped it. That's my number one theory.
Cool.
It's my worth it winner.
Next August will mark 40 years since a young legal secretary in Toledo, Ohio disappeared without a trace. When Michael Anderson died in 2008, his obituary said he was preceded in death by his daughter Cynthia. The case, however, is still open, and Ohio's longest active missing persons case. The Toledo Police Department asks that anyone with information contact them. As for whether Cynthia is out there somewhere, a 59-year-old detached from her past, or whether she...
This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we look into a maritime disappearance so mysterious, that it's unclear if a crime even occurred at all. The abandoned Mary Celeste.
Well, that sounds thrilling and potentially simultaneously very boring.
Well, it's more so that there's a spooky ship.
I do like that, I'm listening.
A bunch of spooky things happened on it.
Okay.
And there could be very scientific explanations, and then there could be other explanations.
Oh.
All right, well, let's get into whatever happened to the Mary Celeste.
On May 18th, 1861, the merchant vessel the Amazon was launched from Spencer's Island in present-day Nova Scotia. The ship was about 100 feet long, over 25 feet wide, and made from spruce, pine, birch, and beech woods.
Good wood.
Good wood, right?
A great medley of woods.
Yeah, you want a nice, you want a varietal spread of wood when you're making a vessel.
A panoply of wood.
A varietal vessel.
After difficulties launching the ship, during which some reports claim the boat refused to budge from its perch, the Amazon's maiden voyage was an inauspicious one. In what might be seen as an omen for the ship's future, the captain caught pneumonia, from which he would die.
Think of how exciting it would be to be a captain of a boat.
Oh.
Not as exciting to get pneumonia and die, but like, you know.
But here's my captain vibe, and then I want to hear yours. But here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna walk out my captain's quarters. I walk sort of to the ledge of the promenade or whatever it is there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I look beautiful. I look stunning.
Okay.
I'm glimmering.
Yeah.
And I have one hand behind my back.
We're gonna sidebar on that later, but
another one up here, sort like this, and I just go. And then one of the boys on the poop deck looks up at me and goes, "Captain," and I just go, "That away, lads."
Oh, I thought you were just gonna point at him to not talk to you. Like if I went, "Captain," and you just went,
"Walk the plank."
If I was the captain, I'd say, "Hey everyone, check out my new boat. I'm gonna sail it for years and years to come." And then I'd die of pneumonia.
Over the next few years, the ship was damaged on several occasions, eventually in 1867 running aground in Cow Bay, Cape Breton Island. This time, the ship was so banged up that its investors couldn't afford to have it repaired or even transported off the rocks. A man named Alexander McBean.
McBean?
Solid name. It's a solid name. I love it. It really rolls off the tongue.
McBean, what can I do for you?
Mr. McBean, the mail's outside.
You can do that too.
A man named Alexander McBean managed to pull the wreckage from the rocks and refloat her. Ownership of the Amazon then passed to one John Howard Beatty, who sold the badly damaged boat to American Richard W. Haynes. Haynes replaced the keel and the entire bottom of the boat, added new spars, rigging, and sails, and renamed the boat the Mary Celeste, which was then seized by his creditors as Haynes was unable to pay his loans.
McBean, flipping a ship.
McBean, it sounds like, didn't make any McProfit.
I just don't know why anyone would be in the market for an old boat.
Well, it's 1861. What else are you gonna do?
Get a new one.
Eventually, the ship was sold to a New York shipping company and put under the captainship of Benjamin Spooner Briggs, a man whose life as a boat captain seemed predetermined by that name.
A schooner for Spooner.
That's good. That's
I
good.
don't think
Right?
it's technically all the boat heads in the comments are gonna be like, "That is not a schooner."
I mean, look, give him a break. It was a good joke, huh?
Yeah, give me a break. It was a good joke. Let me have some boat jokes, guys.
Yeah.
What is a schooner anyway?
I don't know. What would you rename your boat, by the way?
Champion. Just Champion.
What would I rename mine? What if I called it the Sea Skimmer? And I'd stand on the deck proud like this.
You just crashed directly into a cliffside.
Ah, yes, let's skim that.
The Skimmer and Champion. We could be out there, I don't know how captains communicate with each other.
Oh, we could have one of those little,
Oh!
those little things. You
A
look out.
spyglass.
A spyglass, and I'd look at you from my deck, and you'd look at me from yours. And then we'd both crash into a cliffside. Woo!
Oh, Bergara!
Oh, look at that, it's Shady Boy on
Look,
the
you've got the
Champion.
Skimmer out today.
Yeah, hey, wait. That looks closer.
An experienced captain with a reputation for being responsible, respectable, and deeply religious, Briggs had been a full-time sailor for over 18 years. As he prepared for his first journey at the helm of the Mary Celeste, he wrote, quote, "Our vessel is in beautiful trim, and I hope we shall have a fine passage, but I have never been in her before and can't say how she'll sail. We seem to have a very good mate and steward, and I hope I shall have a pleasant voyage." End quote.
It's creepy.
Yeah, it's a...
People always using the feminine pronouns for boats. I've never been in her.
Also, he's really waxing poetic for just something. I'm assuming this is something he wrote in a journal. Who writes like that in
Jesus
a journal?
Christ.
This is a journal. I'm not confirming that, but I'm pretty sure it is. The things I write in my journal are like shorthand. It's not like,
I'm always like, ate tuna sandwich.
today sucks, today good. That's like mine. I'm not like, today I set voyage for Ralph's and looked out for some chorizo. And when I got it, boy, was it a pleasant smell in my kitchen that day. I beamed with pride as it hit my stomach. No.
No.
Need beer. Drink emotion.
On November 7th, 1872, loaded with 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol meant for routine delivery, the Mary Celeste left New York City bound for Genoa, Italy. On board was Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and a crew of 7. In the early afternoon on December 4th, a British merchant vessel, the De Gratia, spotted the Mary Celeste about 400 miles east of the Azores, an archipelago in the mid-Atlantic off the coast of Portugal. When the Mary Celeste didn't respond to attempts to signal it, 3 members of the De Gratia were sent to board her.
Dumb as hell to take your family on a boat.
If you're an 18-year veteran of the sea, you would think like it's just another day at the office for you. It would be like you visiting Pa
No.
at whatever Pa did for Shane Madej.
I feel like if I'm married to a man who's been at sea for 18 years.
Oh, therein lies the riddle though, because he's actually married to the sea.
Enough of the sea! Are you going on that boat?
Hell no. Here's the thing. If I see a boat that's not responding to signals, obviously you do have to send some people over.
Yeah.
But my thought, and because I'm a paranoid guy,
Yeah.
is that this ship is playing possum. And they're waiting
It's
for
a trap.
3 people
It's a
to
trap.
come over. And when they come over, then they're gonna take me hostage and then use that to get my boat. Pirates. That's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking.
Or it's a zoo boat and the monkeys got out.
Or it's a zoo boat and the monkeys got out.
I'd be taking out my spyglass, looking at that boat and saying, that boat's fucked. That'll work.
The 3 men found the ship totally abandoned. There was no trace of struggle, and the little damage the vessel showed was not severe enough to make a veteran crew of sailors abandon ship. The ship's cargo was basically intact, with only 9 of the barrels of alcohol found empty, and there was still a 6-month supply of food and water on board. The ship's one lifeboat was missing, along with its chronometer, sextant, navigation book, and register. No sign of the lifeboat or anyone on board was ever found. The ship's last log, recorded at 8 a.m. on Monday, November 25th, 10 days before she was discovered by the De Gratia, said they were about 6 miles off of Santa Maria, the southernmost island of the Azores. As records were generally logged on an hourly basis, it's presumed whatever happened to the Mary Celeste and its crew happened shortly thereafter.
What did the log was just like, what did it say?
I'm assuming nothing of note.
It didn't say like Audi 5000 or anything.
No, it didn't say that. It didn't say like, yo,
No.
this blows.
Looks like they all decided to be Audi 5000.
With no clear explanation for what caused the crew to abandon the Mary Celeste, the De Gratia brought the ship to Gibraltar, about 800 miles east of where it was found. A judge conducted a salvage hearing, and despite the disappearance on her seemingly doomed record, the boat was sold to new owners.
Who's buying the ship after people just disappeared from
Well,
it?
it's the same reason why dodo birds out there are buying haunted houses.
Cheap.
Yes, does this house, this property, this boat have a record for disaster and death? Sure, but who could pass up a sale?
Here's the thing. Let me state for the record, I don't believe in ghosts.
Okay,
I also don't want to buy a house that people have been murdered in.
why not?
Because it's a fucking bummer.
That being said, it's time to dive into theories surrounding what happened to her disappeared passengers. Our first theory is pirates. It's generally believed that Captain Briggs abandoned the ship purposefully, though why is still unclear. Briggs was not only the captain, but also an investor in the boat. Since the boat was not discovered to have any catastrophic damage, pirates forcing everyone off the ship might make sense. Indeed, when the De Gratia showed up to Gibraltar with the Mary Celeste, some suspected the crew of the De Gratia itself of foul play, since finding an abandoned, fine-conditioned ship with a full undisturbed cargo was so rare. There were theories the De Gratia crew could have pirated the ship and slaughtered everyone on board. After 3 months of investigation, however, the court found no evidence that this was what happened. Despite the ruling, the company that insured the ship paid the crew of the De Gratia only 1/6 of the policy amount, suggesting the insurers were not convinced of an absence of foul play.
Yeah, like how thorough could they be back then, honestly? They're probably like, you promise? Yeah, we didn't do anything. All right, well, we're gonna pay you money then.
But not the full thing.
That'd be crazy if you were like, let's kill these people, take their ship, and get paid money for it. And then for hundreds of years, people are like, what happened?
Yeah, I know, when it was just simple as like, nice ship, I like it, it's mine now.
There's another theory that pirates could have come from inside the ship. It's been posited that the crew could have consumed too much of the alcohol they were transporting and become mutinous. 2 crew members in particular, German brothers Volkert and Boy Lorenzen, were seen as suspicious, as unlike those aboard, none of their belongings were discovered on the ship. Later testimony, however, would reveal that was because their belongings had actually been lost in a prior shipwreck earlier that year.
Kind of weird that, I guess shipwrecks were just common. You would think that's like a one and done situation where.
I mean, think about how often car accidents happen.
True, but I feel like a shipwreck is a little more absolute, no? And yes, these 2 could have been mutinous. However, I will say if they are pirates and the only thing missing from the entire ship was their belongings, pretty historically bad pirates in terms of bootying things. Can you use that as a verb, bootying, stealing booty?
Well, you have.
I did it.
I have a hard time imagining German pirates. I don't know why.
I mean, I'm gonna ask it and it's probably going to be a disaster, but I now have to hear your impression of a German pirate.
Hello?
Our next theory is that everyone abandoned ship due to a panicked miscalculation by the captain. Follow me because this theory gets a bit into the seaweeds about boat maintenance. One of the first things the crew of the De Gratia did once on board the Mary Celeste was attempt to sound the pipes to help make sure the boat was still seaworthy. This involves using a sounding rod to determine how much water had accumulated in the bilges. Something, however, was amiss with the Mary Celeste's sounding rod. The second mate of the De Gratia, John Wright, explained, quote, "There was no sounding rod but a piece of iron with a piece of line attached to it. I found no proper sounding rod. I was able to sound with the piece of iron and line attached to it. It was found lying on the deck near the cabin," end quote. The fact that the sounding rod, or at least its jerry-rigged replacement, was not found in its proper place has led experts to theorize that the rod had been dropped shortly before abandoning ship. When John Wright sounded the abandoned Mary Celeste, he discovered that the hold of the ship was filled with about 3.5 feet of water. There was also a considerable amount of water between the decks. Though this would have been a relatively large amount of water in proportion to the size of the boat, it still would not indicate a level of leakage that should have caused a panic in an experienced crew. Additionally, if the barometric pressure was low from a sudden weather change, for instance in the presence of a waterspout, it could have affected the pumps and caused the sounding reading to seem like there was more water in the ship than there actually was. Thinking the ship was taking on too much water and sinking, the captain may have thought he was erring on the side of caution when he evacuated his wife, daughter, and crew to the lifeboat.
All right.
Well, I admire your commitment to educating people about boats and sounding rods.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, people are going to be educated in this episode.
It's going to be thrilling right there. But it is thrilling because it's logical and it's a good theory.
It feels so premature to be like, well, the ship is perfectly afloat. My
Yes.
rod's telling me some stuff, but we can't trust my rod.
Yeah.
Let's all abandon ship. Because
Also,
then as you're moving away, you still see the ship perfectly fine on the horizon. Everyone's probably like, I think the ship's, why don't we go back to the ship? Ship's looking
pretty damn good.
choice out there.
Yeah, the ship is looking like it's floating.
Yeah.
Pretty buoyant, that ship. But also, if the idea that like, oh, he knows his ship is watertight, therefore the presence of water that he found with his little rinky-dink sounding rod would make him alarmed. It wouldn't, because he would realize, oh, the ship's watertight. That water down there is probably just from the storm that we got. The water just came through the deck.
Yeah.
To assume that this theory is true is also assuming that this captain has no knowledge of the sea at all.
Yeah. And that
To
is
me.
not true. He is a seasoned seaman.
You just wanted to say seaman, didn't you? Say seaman right now and don't smirk.
Seaman.
Oh, you did it. Okay, don't smirk like that. I don't like that.
Our next theory is, of course, a seaquake. According to the US Naval Research Laboratory, the area around the Azores is one of the most seismically active in the world. There is evidence that an 8.5 magnitude seaquake occurred within a month after the Mary Celeste was found abandoned, and it's possible a foreshock struck the boat and went unrecorded. An earthquake at sea could have caused the ship to be severely shaken, perhaps breaking open the 9 barrels discovered empty, filling the bilges with alcohol and fumes. If there were ominous rumblings in the cargo that could signal an imminent gas explosion, it could explain the hasty departure. Admittedly, there are some problems with this theory. The 9 empty barrels did not necessarily indicate they had been broken. Instead, those 9 barrels had been made of red oak, rather than white oak like the rest of the cargo, and were more likely emptied by natural seepage. If this was the case, there would be no fumes or cause for an explosion. Additionally, the rest of the ship was not found in a huge amount of disarray. Instead, the majority of the personal belongings left behind seemed to be undisturbed and in place.
Look, we're Angelinos here. I'm a native Angelino, you're a transplant.
That's right.
Even still, we know our way around a quake. We've danced before.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, there would be some things out of place.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
And if you had barrels, there's going to be seepage. Seasoned seaman's seen some seepage.
You've done it. You've done it. Are you happy with yourself?
It's fun to say.
It is pretty fun to say.
But yeah, but a quake at sea?
Kind of hard to decipher that with, with the waves and such.
Yeah, like
These
how does
waves
it-
seem a little more wavy.
Yeah, doesn't the water just sort of absorb that?
I would think so.
I mean, water's not going, you know.
I've never been in an earthquake at sea, but I have been in an earthquake in a tub.
Oh, what was that like?
The water was all shifting around, and I was like, whoa! I was floating around there like Paddington Bear.
Was Rubber Ducky there?
Rubber Ducky was not there.
Oh.
It was a hot tub, though. It wasn't like a...
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
That sounds dope.
It was crazy.
I'd be like, oh, yeah, baby.
I was in there like, oh, better not spill my beer.
I don't want to spill my margarita.
I had to move it around like this to regulate. It was great. Anyways, I don't know if I really buy this one either, based on the state of the ship.
Yeah, it sounds dumb.
This indeed does bring up the question then, what happened to the crew?
Our fourth and final theory is that the crew of the Mary Celeste was abducted by aliens, or attacked by a giant sea monster, perhaps an octopus with giant limbs.
Wait, are you actually gonna do this? What are you doing?
I'm citing the theory.
The floor is yours.
That was the end of the theory. But I mean, like, wouldn't it be crazy if they got abducted by aliens or like a sea monster? Like a big octopus took its, like, grabbed them off, you know? Look, I've looked at a lot of boards and a lot of people think that since you crossed off all the logical boxes, aliens is the only thing that makes sense. They got in the lifeboat to try and paddle away, but they just couldn't paddle fast enough, you know?
Yeah, them getting in the lifeboat negates the aliens thing entirely.
Does it?
Yeah.
Well, then what happened to them?
Monkey.
It's those damn sea monkeys.
Maybe they had a monkey on board.
What if they got eaten by crabs?
That'd kick ass. I mean, not for them.
No. Yeah, I mean.
Imagine if the crabs ate them and then were just taking on the roles. Like one crab is captain, another crab is captain's wife, the little baby crab.
Jesus Christ.
But they're surrounded by half-eaten bodies.
After the Mary Celeste's infamous disappearance, John Dewis, the son of the man who built the ship, said of his father's vessel, quote, "This craft seemed possessed of the devil to begin with, but where she got it, I don't know," end quote. While we can be somewhat confident that the Mary Celeste was not possessed by Satan, what actually happened to the 10 passengers who set sail aboard her that November of 1872 remains unsolved.
Nobody cared who I was till I put on the mask. This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we shine a light on the mysterious disappearance of 3 lighthouse keepers from the isolated Flannan Isles.
Shine a light.
That's right. It's a pun.
Off to a great start.
That's right, a punny start.
Yeah, I'm excited.
They really upgraded our office this season.
We really knocked down that wall. I didn't realize how beautiful it was behind
Well,
that.
open concept is in now,
Yes,
so I thought
yes.
it would be nice to have us out here. What do you think about lighthouses?
Well, we know I love them. I want to live in one and I want to die in one.
Do you think you could ever be a lighthouse keeper?
100%.
What if I told you you were gonna disappear?
Sounds good.
All
After
right.
this year? Ay, ay, ay. Just a little 2020 humor. Ooh, I didn't realize how much I could slap my thighs out here without the desk in front of us.
Should we get into it?
Please. Oh.
The Flannan Isles, also known as the Seven Hunters, is a group of uninhabited rocky islands off the western coast of Scotland. The mysterious islands allegedly had a profound effect on sheep, and shepherds would sail their flocks to the islands to graze. Sheep who dined on the grasses of the Flannan Isles were said to give birth to twins or recover from illness. Despite its positive effect on sheep, legend of a spirit haunting the islands kept any shepherd from staying overnight.
That can't be real. Sheep magic? What are you talking about, huh?
Well, apparently it was not so much the sheep that were magical, it was the grass.
Magic grass for
It made
double
the-
sheep?
For twin sheep or for a sheep with a cold.
Okay.
Nevertheless, in 1896, the Board of Trade sanctioned construction of a lighthouse on the largest of the Flannan Isles, Eilean Mor. Eilean Mor is also home to some bothies, a Scottish term for a small hut that now sit in ruin, as well as the chapel of St. Flannan, the namesake for the islands. In December of 1899, the lighthouse was completed and lit for the first time. 4 lightkeepers were assigned to the lighthouse, each of whom would work a staggered rotation of 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off. This meant there were always 3 men on the island tending the lighthouse at one time.
Good to have pals.
It's nice to have company when you're stranded on an island.
Well, I guess if you don't have any fellas around, you got those sheeps anyway.
Well, just nice to not die alone, you know? I mean, this is unsolved, so things aren't going to happen that are great.
In mid-December 1900, 1 year after the lighthouse was first put in service, the 3 men stationed on the island were James Ducat, the 43-year-old principal keeper with a wife, 4 children, and 20 years experience; Donald MacArthur, the married 40-year-old occasional keeper who was covering for the first assistant keeper who was on sick leave; and Thomas Marshall, the youngest of the trio at 28 and the second assistant keeper. The 4th keeper, Joseph Moore, wasn't on the island as it was his 2 weeks off.
So youngest was 28 years old.
That's right.
How old are you right now? 29?
I'm 29, so let me put myself
Put yourself
into the
there.
mind. If you could choose your fate,
Would you?
would you?
Lighthouse. Lighthouse. I love working at the lighthouse.
What is going on with your face?
Give me one impassioned one. I want to hear from you. Now that we've workshopped it.
I love working at the lighthouse.
I don't know, man. I love
working at the lighthouse.
Working. This isn't offensive, I don't think. I
It's fine.
apologize.
If you're Scottish and you're offended by this, you should be.
Around midnight on December 15th, the steamship Arctur passed near the Flannan Isles. Captain Holman noted that he could not see the light, though the conditions should have allowed him to. When the Arctur arrived in port, it reported the absence of the light, though this was never communicated to the Northern Lighthouse Board.
Pretty active board, I'm imagining there.
Are the lights on? Yep. Good.
Okay, check.
And just kicks back. Yeah.
This is
Another
alive.
day of hard work. Another day of hard work.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
On December 26th, the lighthouse tender ship Hesperus made a routine visit to Eilean Mor. When nearing the island, Captain James Harvey found it odd that there was no flag on the flagpole. The Hesperus sounded her horn to try to get the attention of the 3 lighthouse keepers, but there was no response. They then attempted firing a flare. Again, no reply. Joseph Moore, the 4th lighthouse keeper, was on board the Hesperus. With no signal coming from the island, Moore was sent ashore. Upon arriving at the Eilean Mor's east landing, nothing appeared amiss. Everything was where it had been when Moore had last been on the island. Moore made his way up to the island where he found the entrance gate, the entrance door, and the door after that all closed. The kitchen door was found open, however, and the fireplace had not been lit for several days. All of the clocks were stopped. According to Moore, quote, "I then entered the rooms in succession, found the beds empty just as they left them in the early morning," end quote. With no sign of anyone, Moore realized something was seriously wrong and returned to the Hesperus to get more men to help him investigate. They found the lamp of the lighthouse to be in working order and fully prepped, but there was no clue as to what happened to the 3 missing men.
So Moore went ashore to knock on the door, is what you're saying.
You're right. I like that. I always find that when people are missing and nothing is out of place except the people,
Spooky.
very eerie. There's something about it.
Very eerie. I guess it would be scarier if it was like blood everywhere, but
I actually don't think so. I think that would be a bit much. It takes a little more nuance to scare the Burgmeister, as all of you have seen on every episode of this show.
Moore and 3 others were left on the island to operate the lighthouse while the Hesperus sailed back to telegraph the Northern Lighthouse Board of the disappearances. The next day, Moore and the others set about the island searching for more clues. While the East Boat landing, where Moore had arrived the previous day, was in perfect order, it was a different story at the West Boat landing. The West Boat landing was damaged, and a box that had held tackle and mooring ropes was gone. The ropes were found strewn on the rocks, and the iron railings around the area had been broken, with some completely missing. That damage, however, was already detailed in the keeper's log, implying it was not directly related to the disappearance. Most notably missing upon further investigation was a life buoy for emergencies, which had been kept among the railings approximately 110 feet above sea level. The ropes holding the buoy in place, however, had not been removed by man, implying that the sea had ripped the buoy from its spot.
some bad buoy business.
Seems kind of lazy, no? It's 110 feet up in the air and you're just like, yeah, it must have been the ocean that took that bad boy out.
110 feet up in the air?
Yes.
I don't get that. What?
I
Huh?
guess you could have like a big Calabunga wave, but
I'm not buying that.
then what are you buying?
Oh.
What's on the shelf?
I don't know. Oh, it's some object work. Yeah, go for it. What is that?
It looks like
a Gatorade?
No, it looks like a can of alien juice.
Is that where this is fucking going? Is that where this is going?
It doesn't have anything else on it, it just says alien juice.
Oh.
While some may question whether a 110-foot wave is possible, historian Mike Dash found evidence from a lighthouse keeper in the 1950s that water has splashed on Eilean Mor as high as 300 feet up, wetting the lamp house. In fact, while trying to photograph these waves, the lighthouse keeper was almost washed away himself by a large wave.
Good for him.
Which, getting up there close and personal.
Scary to take a photo of a big wave.
The guy's gonna end up on Kook Slams.
Oh, he would end up on Kook Slams.
Whoa, it's slippery out here on these
1950s
rocks.
lighthouse keeper gets dunked. Hashtag nutbuster.
Back at the lighthouse, by taking inventory of the clothes left behind, Moore was also able to determine exactly what his coworkers had been wearing when they disappeared. MacArthur in particular had left behind the only coat he was known to wear, implying he had disappeared into the cold of a December in coastal Scotland without a coat. They also discovered the logs from the keeper's final days.
It doesn't say whether or not they were in the toilet.
I knew that's where he was headed. We had to let him go there. He's gone there.
Come on.
He's happy about it, and we can keep on moving.
Their final logs.
The last entry was from December 13th, but a slate had details from December 14th and 15th, including the time the light was extinguished on the morning of the 15th, as well as atmospheric readings as late as 9 a.m.
I didn't realize they were up to more than just flipping a switch. So they're doing like readings and stuff?
They got to tend to the grounds too, upkeep.
Mow the
sure
lawn.
that like when you mow the lawn, things like that,
Yeah.
make sure the fence has proper paint on it. If you're in a coastal area, the elements there could be harsh.
They probably are. yeah.
Erode away at the structure and your sanity.
Oh.
The salient point to take from all that is the fact that they weren't saying like, maybe my last log. I saw a big ass wave outside and it looks like it's coming towards me.
Sure.
Nothing like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So, seemingly a normal couple days there.
The log noted morale had been low amongst the keepers. Peculiarly, it also made note of recent strong storms and winds, though there had been no reports of storms in the area. So, either the turbulent weather had been extremely localized over their islands, or the men had hallucinated or fictionalized the storms.
Have you ever been so jacked up that you imagined there was a thunderstorm outside your house?
Yeah. No, I haven't.
And it had too much of the devil's juice and you're like, oh, look at those clouds.
What if two of them are real mean and they're playing pranks on the third one?
They're creating a thunderstorm?
One source reports the discovery of additional logs made by the 28-year-old Thomas Marshall. Within, the second assistant keeper detailed how the storms had been so frightening they had caused the men to pray, even though their location atop a 150-foot cliff in a building that was only a year old practically guaranteed their safety. Marshall describes Ducat as being very quiet in recent days, and the gruff MacArthur had been seen crying. The final entry read, quote, "Storm ended. Sea calm. God is over all," end quote. While some have poked significant holes in the authenticity of these logs, even if true, they still don't offer much explanation for what could have happened to three vanished men.
Sometimes things could make you sad. You know all about that, right? Master of emotions.
I cry all the time. I cried at Little Women a year ago.
The film, right?
No, I just saw some Little Women on the street and I sobbed.
Why are they so little? It's the way you said it. It really sounded like you were at Ralph's and you saw some like little women picking out fruit.
So the storm was not the thing that wiped them out, if these logs are true.
That's not necessarily true because they could think the storm's over. I mean, how accurate do these guys? They're not Al Roker, you know, and he never gets it wrong.
He never does.
He never does.
Great guy. Love Roker. Shout out to Roker.
Big Roke head over here.
I'm a huge Roke head.
You watch him on Roku?
No, I watch him on NBC.
With the island completely searched and turning up few clues, there was one man who might still be able to shed some insight on the keeper's final days. One Roderick Mackenzie. Because there was no radio contact with the lighthouse, the men on Eilean Mor were essentially stranded. If something happened and they required assistance, they needed a way to signal to someone who could get help. Lighthouse keepers would do so using poles with balls or discs attached to them and placed coming out of the lighthouse balcony, hoping someone would spot their message. 18 miles southeast of the island is Gallon Head, where gamekeeper Roderick Mackenzie was paid £8 a year to watch for communications from the Flannan Isles. Each night, Mackenzie was to note whether he could see the light and whether any signals were seen during the day. When investigators checked in with Mackenzie after the disappearances, he reported that he had been unable to see the actual lighthouse tower between December 7th and December 29th. He had, however, been able to make out the light on December 12th, but not again until Moore lit it on the 26th. Mackenzie admitted the absence of the light for 2 weeks had concerned him, but there's no indication he reported this to anyone until the Northern Lighthouse Board came to question him.
So it's essentially his duty to check on them to make sure they're okay. And he couldn't see the lighthouse for 2 weeks. And was
Even
like,
worse,
ah!
it was his job to see if something was weird and then report it, and he was like, that's weird. Let's get back to this sausage I'm cooking.
Well, wait it out. It's only been 1 week and 6 days. We'll see how this shakes out.
Inaction was not what Mackenzie was being paid those £8 a year for. According to the National Lighthouse Board, Mackenzie had agreed to report a failure, quote, immediately by telegram to head office in Edinburgh so that the necessary steps could be taken to have someone sent to carry out any repairs as soon as possible, end quote. Had an actual lighthouse keeper been appointed to that role, he likely would have reported the darkness much sooner. It should be noted that Ducat, the principal keeper, had asked the Lighthouse Board's superintendent if an experiment of sorts could be done, with the aim of seeing how long it would take someone to notice a signal from shore and respond appropriately. Alas, the experiment was not approved, but Ducat would ultimately get his answer. Way too long.
I guess it's a little too late for an I told you so,
I mean, he could still say it, just...
but he did bloody well tell them so.
With 3 lighthouse keepers vanished into thin air, it's time to jump into theories about what happened that cold December on Eilean Mor. Our first theory is that the men were accidentally swept into the sea. Perhaps a wave caught the missing tackle box, scattering the contents about the rocks. If 2 of the men went to try to retrieve the supplies and a wave swept one away, the other could have ran back to the house to get the third. It's possible that third man was MacArthur, who could have run out to help without grabbing his coat. Perhaps while trying to rescue their coworker, the others were hit by a renegade wave and likewise swept out to sea. As we've already discussed, enormous waves have been known to hit the island. So, even if the keepers thought they were far enough from the shore, they may have been caught off guard. There's also the possibility the men could have literally been blown from the island. The nearby Butt of Lewis had been at one point considered by Guinness to be the windiest place in the UK.
What's funny about that is the Butt of Shane is the windiest place in the US.
Do you have that one locked and loaded?
Oh yeah, I did, baby.
No bodies ever washed ashore, leaving room to question this theory. How could 3 experienced lighthouse keepers be caught so off guard, especially if one had already been swept to a rough sea? Why would the other 2 risk themselves?
Help me! You know, and they're like, well, let's help him. You know?
All right, fuck, he's back in the
Throw
ocean.
a rope down there or something, and then, whoa, you know, oh, we're all in the sea now.
I would think that they have some sort of protocol when one falls in and it doesn't immediately become and they
What
go
if
out
they're
there and
drunk?
start slipping around.
What if they're drunk?
I guess what if they were drunk? Yes.
If they're hallucinating, even worse?
Look, it's possible. I just don't think it's very plausible.
Perhaps because of the romanticism of an isolated Scottish island, some theorize one or more of the keepers could have had a psychological breakdown, leading to their demise. As the logs described, morale was low amongst the keepers, and there was the possibility they were hallucinating storms. Perhaps a fight broke out with one keeper killing the others, tossing their bodies into the surf. then leaping into the ocean himself. MacArthur in particular was known for his rough nature and violent tendencies. There's also speculation that a romantic relationship could have sprouted between the men, then soured, or that one went mad, running off the cliff while the other slipped chasing after him. Because there were no indications of violence found on the island, however, this theory is based mostly in speculation.
Lighthouse? More like Fight House.
Needs work. It's perfectly plausible that one of them may have lost it out there on this island, but there wasn't any indications of violence, and I would assume, being, 3 grown men, you would see some signs of a tussle.
Yeah, that place would be marked up,
Yeah, probably.
There's some scuffs.
Like, no one's gonna go out there like, all right, take me into the ocean, I guess. Here you go, I'll wrap myself up so I can't escape.
There was no way for them to get off of there on their own.
Like
they could have just bailed.
Like if all 3 of them walked into the ocean?
Well, because you said 2 of them could have been in love, and I'm thinking, well, what if all 3, they were like, this works. What we got
triangle?
going here, this works, the
Yeah.
3 of us. We're in love. We're 3 men who love each other.
A tripod.
A tripod. Let's get out of
And
here.
then one day, one of them says, I think this should be a bipod instead.
Oh, no, I'm saying the 3 of them lived happily ever after and just, moved to Jamaica or something.
Oh, I see.
Our third theory is, of course, that the men were abducted by aliens.
Here we go.
That's it.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
No, it's not. There's more.
that's it.
What? Say the rest.
Theory 4, our final theory is that
What? No, that's it.
a little throwback there for you.
You're just having fun with it.
I mean, look,
This isn't a serious theory.
110 feet up in the air, got knocked off by something that wasn't man, and there was no signs of a major wave hitting the lighthouse. No signs of a scuffle. They all left. The logs were pristine. Who's to say they didn't see some kind of big-ass light outside and they were like, hey, what's that?
Because they'd be like, hey, nice light.
They're lighthouse keepers. They
Yeah.
love light.
Oh, have you seen our light? What light you got there?
Oh, nice big
Yeah,
light.
that's
I
a
love
hell
our
of a
light.
light.
Our light's the best.
This light kicks ass.
Whoa, there's another light.
Why
That
am I
light's much
300
bigger than my
feet
light.
off the ground?
Holy
This is a
shit.
hell of a light.
Let's get closer to the... It's possible.
Our final theory is that some other supernatural occurrence happened to the 3 Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers. There are legends of water sprites in Scotland, particularly the Blue Men of the Minch, or storm kelpies in the Outer Hebrides, where the Flannan Isles are located.
I suspect everyone watching this is eagerly waiting for me to really dunk on this, but I gotta say I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Tell me more about these men.
These strong green-haired creatures are thought to live in caves and sink ships in order to drown sailors. According to legend, if the lighthouse keepers encountered a clan of these sprites, their only hope for survival would be to have the last word in a rhyming duel.
Do you not love the idea that the only way, and I repeat, the only way you could survive a sprite is if you beat them in a rap battle?
That's a lot.
It says the last word in a rhyming duel.
A rhyming duel. Okay, so here we go, Ryan. Well, I'm a sprite. And
That's your impression of a sprite? Just you saying, I'm a sprite?
well, I'm a sprite and I've come to your island, and if you want to live, you're gonna have to beat me.
You didn't even rhyme the first 2 sentences. You said, I'm
No.
gonna do it in a rhymey way.
Oh, I thought you had to rhyme with what I say.
You didn't say like, I'm a sprite, let's
And I'm
test
here
your
to
might.
Okay.
And I'm here on this dark, dark night. Oh, are you in for a fright?
No, I'm
You
not.
better keep it tight.
I'm real tough. And I'll
sure
tell
like your
you,
light.
I've had enough. I sure do like my big, tall light, and I don't like you, sir. Try as I might.
Looks like you gent are heading for the falls. If not, you could suck my blue balls.
All right, I know what I'm beat. Woo!
There's also a local legend surrounding Moore's arrival on the island. Allegedly, when he entered the lighthouse building, 3 giant black birds perched atop the lighthouse flew off into the sky. People claim those birds were the 3 keepers, who were transformed into the avian form as a punishment for violating the supernatural power of the island.
My brain is just, I'm picturing the Animorphs cover of a lighthouse keeper turning into like a crow.
Could you imagine just like them perched atop the lighthouse and they see all these people trying to look for them and they're trying and they're cawing and cawing. It's us! It's us, please! I'm the bird! It's me! It's me, Mac!
They've got little slickers on.
Yeah, there's the coat! It's on the bird! It got shrunk with them.
A little corncob pipe.
Tragic. It's tragic.
It's fun to imagine, and a load of horse shit.
That's what happens when you've entered the Twilight Zone.
No, this is unsolved.
Shit, you're right.
Yeah,
Fuck.
sorry, dude.
Keepers tended the lighthouse on Eilean Moor until 1971, when it was fully automated. For those 70 years, the sudden and eerie disappearance of 3 men charged with manning the island must have hung heavily over the heads of lighthouse keepers in the Flannan Isles, and keepers reported hearing the men's names whispered by someone in the wind. As for what extinguished the lights of James Ducat, Donald MacArthur, and Thomas Marshall 120 years ago, that mystery remains unsolved.